What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Primetime Sports Podcast, hosted by Joey Maylari. So tonight, very special episode here in the studio, back from spring break. Obviously, a lot going on in the sports world. You had NFL free agency start today. You have March Madness with the first 4 games starting today and tomorrow, before the bracket begins with a round of 64 on Thursday. A lot going on in the NFL. I feel like I could talk probably the whole episode about some of the moves that the Giants are making or in the NFL in general. Then also, you got the NBA. A ton to talk about there and what's going on with a lot of playoff implications over the next few weeks. So I'll start off with March Madness. I have my friend Dylan Reilly in the studio with me. My boy Dylan's his second time back in the studio. He can talk anything sports. We can talk MLB, NBA, Clippers, Lakers, Celtics, Knicks, anything all day, Red Sox, Yankees. Pleasure having you in the studio, Dylan. How you doing?
Thanks for having me, Joey. I'm doing well. I'm excited for March Madness.
I know. It's a special time of the year, isn't it? I think the best
time for sports.
I would say the best time. I was just going to say that. I feel it's the best time in sports at Thursday, Friday, March Madness. Would you agree with that? Like, it's just unreal.
It's this time in March, and then right when baseball starts, and that's about it.
And that it emerges, right? Because right around the Final Four is right around the time of opening day, too, which is nice. So, obviously, a lot to look forward to in sports over the next few weeks. And then you got the NFL draft just a few weeks after that, mid-April, late into April. So, a lot going on in sports over the next 45 days or so between March Madness.
3 months, really.
Yeah, basically, which the NFL draft's just about a month and change away, a month and a half away. So, all the way up to that point, it's going to be, obviously a lot to talk about, especially with the NFL draft. I feel like you could talk hours. When we get close to it with the mock drafts, you could go hours, pick by pick. So we'll start off with March Madness. And just a preface, too, we were just talking MLB. Before opening day, got to have you back in to give a whole breakdown of the MLB.
We're gonna have to talk. We're going to have a 2-hour episode just to
Definitely.
talk about
Big Yankees guy. Yankees guy. Which I love about our conversations, because we get lunch every Friday. We could talk anything. Like you give us a topic conversation. We talk about the Texas Rangers for 45 minutes. Cincinnati Reds we somehow talked about for about an hour before.
I'll talk more about the Cincinnati Reds. But I think we're going to need 2 hours just to read out the injured list for the Red Sox and the Yankees.
Yes, I would agree with that. And then all the missed opportunities for the Red Sox and what they could have, what they don't. You could probably go through that. But hey, we did re-sign Devers, so that's one obviously development over the past few months that's been good for the Sox. And they're playing better in spring training, even though it's just spring training at the end of the day. But
hey, Marcelo Meyer. Lots to look forward to.
Meyer's obviously a good prospect. Bayo, hopefully get him, fully on board. I hopefully want him to be in the rotation, but who knows what the Red Sox rotation is going to look like. Chris Sale won't be the opening day starter, they said, though, so we'll see what happens there.
To everyone's surprise.
Yeah, it's the same thing every year, right? This will be his 5th year in a row. I think Evaldi started 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022. I think it was 4 years in a row. At least three. I forget 2019. Wow. Nate might have been 2020 and on, but either way, Sale hasn't been there for the Sox in big moments. So we'll get into MLB talk, obviously, in a couple weeks when we get close to the season. We'll start off with the March Madness bracket. I didn't do enough research yet to go fully in-depth as I wanted to. Had a busy last day or two, just get back into it, into the swing of things. I had a problem set due last night that I didn't even know until I got back to school. So it's been quite the transition getting back in. So I didn't really do as much research as I wanted to, but we're going to talk about it lightly, talk about some matchups, maybe talk about some regions, some teams you like, maybe upset watch. We can start anywhere along those lines. So I know you're a big East guy, and I know we have similar views on a couple teams. So we'll start off anywhere you want in the March Madness bracket. Then we'll also have 2 of my friends come on, Matt and Timmy. Timmy's the biggest fan of the show. We're going to have Tim, Timmy, and Matt all come onto the show and call in just about at 7:15. So I'll preview March Madness for 10 minutes and then get him on. I apologize for interrupting Dill, but let you get going.
I mean, I guess the first thing to talk about is Big 12 dominance. I think they ended up sending 10 teams to the tournament.
9 or 10 it was, yeah.
Which feels unprecedented. I don't know if it is, but they're good. Don't get me wrong. I have a feeling there's going to be quite a few disappointments among those 10, though. And I still think when you're looking at like the top tier, I don't think any of the Big 10 teams would really fall in there. I think Purdue, Marquette, Bama, and maybe
Kentucky.
Kentucky. I mean, Kansas, obviously.
Kansas, yeah.
Is obviously like a top
program.
They're 1 seed.
They could repeat.
Unsurprisingly, they're the 1 seed.
Could repeat.
And like UCLA, like there's definitely some top tier teams. I think obviously the Big 12 had a high level
high ceiling all
year.
Yeah, I mean the teams have been unreal all year in the Big 12. That's why everyone's conference record wasn't that great, because they're all so close, kind of, because they're all playing great competition.
But on the other hand, I think all the other power conferences had 3 or 4 teams that could easily go head to head with any of them. With the exception of Kansas, who I think is on another level.
Yeah, Kansas is obviously different. Big 12 has a big talent. I'm a big TCU fan. So I roll with TCU. I roll with TCU. Which that's the thing about college basketball. I feel like in this bracket, more than any other year, which I definitely want to do more, research on before I make my bracket. I didn't even get to do that yet, which I got to look at. I know, basically who I'd like in some matchups. But the one thing about this year in March Madness, I think is interesting than any of the year. I feel like there could be more upsets for some reason than any other year.
I think for sure. I think it's just interesting because you had this wave of coaches retiring. Yeah, Boeheim being the latest, but
Jim Boeheim, legend,
Coach K,
47 years.
Right, Coach K.
Coach K is a big one, obviously. Jay Wright, Villanova, big one. Shaka Smart leaving Texas.
Yes. So you have this wave of coaches leaving, and a lot of the traditional blue bloods aren't really up. I mean, Michigan didn't even make the tournament.
North Carolina didn't make it.
North Carolina didn't make it.
Kentucky's a 6 seed, correct? Kentucky is a 5 or 6.
Yeah.
5.
Duke's a 5 seed. Kentucky's a 6 seed.
UNC didn't make it in.
Right. I mean,
besides Kansas.
Right. I mean, Kansas is the real blue
blood of those. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Syracuse didn't make it in. They made it a ton with Boeheim. So
they were the king of the 10 seed upset. I feel like, but yeah, there's a lot moving in college basketball, and as a result, you have a lot of these teams just kind of sneaking in. I don't know. I guess let's just pick some random ones to talk about. Iona under
great coach.
What's his name?
Rick Pitino. Great coach.
Who, I mean, putting aside personal
the allegations.
Yes. Iona has never been an important program until he got there, and
great coach.
They are now. I mean, they're a 13 seed, which would have been unthinkable 3 or 4 years ago.
That they make it in, yeah.
Yeah, and they're matched up against UConn, who started off the year as
14-0, I think. Yeah,
as the best team for probably the first 20, 25 games, and finished really weakly.
They were 14-0, then lost 5 in a row, then finished 5 in the last 6.
They finished with 8 losses. 25-8 in the Big East. I mean, that's still an excellent record. They probably could have been a 2 or 3 seed, depending on how you shifted it. But that's an interesting matchup to watch to me.
I would agree with that. I think another interesting matchup, which this would be actually the next game, just right below it though. So you got UConn, Iona, that part right below that where you got TCU.
We're talking about the West bracket.
Yes, West bracket at bottom right corner, bottom right quadrant. That game right below it, TCU, Arizona State, Nevada. No matter who wins that play-in game there, I think TCU gets that win. I think that's going to be the most interesting matchup is that next game if it's Gonzaga TCU. This is a bracket that I think the East bracket, which we were talking right before we got on air, I think that East bracket, it really could be a collection of teams that could come out of that.
Fest, yeah.
Exactly, a collection of teams that come out of that. I think this West bracket's one of the more interesting ones, though, too, of especially that bottom quadrant. You brought up UConn, obviously, being against Iona. That could be an upset pick that some people are going to take. I think an upset pick would be TCU over Gonzaga, and that also pains me to say. I know my mom's a big Gonzaga fan. She's got Gonzaga, I think, even winning the tournament. But I just thought of it. I honestly didn't look at that side of the bracket, in depth as much. But then I looked right below and I said, wow, you got TCU there. That's going to be an interesting thing who comes out of there for the Elite Eight.
Yeah.
And what 2 teams come out of there for the Elite Eight.
Especially since this is probably Gonzaga's weakest year in probably, 5 or 6 years.
They've been a 1 seed, 2 seed the last 3 or 4 years.
St. Mary's obviously being a legitimate contender shifts the dynamics in their conference.
They're a 5, St. Mary's.
Right, a 5 seed, which I don't remember the last time they even had another team make the tournament as a top seed.
Yeah, never a single-digit seed, I don't think, off the top of my head. Like San Francisco made it in last year, but they were like 14 or 13 or whatever they were.
So that's obviously changes the dynamic, but also, I don't know, I mean, they don't look like world beaters like they usually do.
No.
I will admit, I usually have sort of a low opinion of Gonzaga because I feel like they play a bunch of weak teams and get rewarded with a 1 or 2 seed every time. That didn't happen this year. They got a 3 seed, and I mean, their record wasn't as good, but
they played, obviously,
they looked like a 3 seed to me, personally.
Yeah, I get that, but they play the game of basketball really well,
yes.
And that's the thing that any team in this tournament that plays the game well, you can make a run. If you just hit your free throws, limit turnovers, you're going to be in a lot of games.
Yes,
you're going to be in a lot of games. That's what they do well. They obviously limit their turnovers. They shoot free throws well. Villanova every single year, I would want to pick against them, but they're always going to win at least a couple games because they limit turnovers and shoot free throws well. Obviously, Villanova, that's another blue blood team that's not in this.
Yeah,
that's another one we just mentioned, which is nuts. But that's the thing about, I think, with March Madness in general is if you have teams that can limit turnovers and shoot threes, that's one thing I should have mentioned.
Yeah.
If you have a team that can...
You need players who can shoot the 3 ball.
Absolutely. Because it's tough for teams to stop. You're playing against teams like, let's say, Oral Roberts when they faced Ohio State 3 years ago now in 2020. Ohio State was not ready at all, or 2021 it was not ready at all for Oral Roberts because, first off, they're playing weak opponents, basically, Oral Roberts. I mean, they're not weak themselves. They were actually 18-0 this year in that conference, but in the Summit League. But they're a good team, don't get me wrong. But I'm saying the teams they're playing against aren't that great. So you're watching film for them against teams that, aren't obviously as good as, what teams like Ohio State are playing, obviously, in the Big Ten. Factor in the fact that you don't know how it's going to translate you playing versus that team. Obviously, Ohio State didn't work for. Oral Roberts was shooting threes lights out. They couldn't cover them.
Yeah.
That's why I like March Madness.
I was going to say, I feel like I would have to look over the stats for this, but I feel like three-point shooting sort of translates well against better competition in a way that, like, being able to drive to the rim just doesn't, because you're going to be, when you're facing a team like Ohio State that last year, or,
Ohio
Kansas,
State,
whoever you're facing,
absolutely.
Insert blue blood here. They're going to have a 5-star center, power forward who's going to be swatting the shit out of everything.
Definitely.
And that's just it's like playing a whole nother sport. Whereas at least with your 3-ball, like, there's only so fast a human being can get down to the 3-point line.
For sure.
And if we want to talk about an interesting matchup, Duke, Oral Roberts in the East.
There you go, drilled it.
Duke with the 5 seed, Oral Roberts with the 12. I'm still going to pick Duke.
Me too. I'm going to go Duke there, but I think it's going to be a close game. I think the line was, 5.5, 6.5. I think Oral Roberts will be in that game. I'm going to take Duke. I like Duke. I like John Shire, the head coach. Very good coach. They started getting things right towards the end of the season. I think they won 8 or 9 of the last games.
They've gained some momentum. They look great in the ACC tournament.
Definitely. And they have so much talent. That's the thing. They're deep. They obviously have guys healthy now. They didn't have guys healthy when they played BC earlier in the season in beginning of January. They were without their starting guard, Jeremy Roach. They got him back healthy. Mitchell's playing great. Mark Mitchell's been playing great as of late. John Shire's a great coach. And what I like about that Duke team, that obviously in years past the ACC was probably better overall in years past.
This is definitely a weaker year.
It's a weaker year, but they started to find their footing towards the end of the year and started beating some good teams in the ACC. Obviously, the ACC wasn't as good as they are in years past, but they got some big wins toward the end of the season. Obviously, made a run in that ACC tournament, which was huge.
Yes,
so
I would have to agree. Just the fact that Virginia was the top team, and Virginia looks like the typical Virginia team. They have a completely suffocating defense, and their offense can disappear at any time.
Yeah, exactly. Every single year.
It's crazy. Part of it's just an issue of recruiting, but it is crazy that they are always like that, and they somehow won a national championship.
Exactly. That's the thing.
It's who knows.
It's crazy how they can always do that. They always play just great defense, and then somehow
they figure it out.
Somehow find a way to hit some shots every now and then, like Kyle Guy hitting some big shots. But like Duke, though, like you said, they started to get things right towards the end of the year.
Yes.
Obviously, winning the ACC tournament, making a run, I thought was going to be. They were obviously going to make it into the tournament. Everyone knew they were going to make it in, but I thought making somewhat of a run in the ACC tournament would give them some momentum heading into this.
I think
them winning it is huge.
Especially, getting the 4 seed is
huge.
A much safer path than.
I like them more than Virginia, like you said too.
Yeah.
That is a safer path as well. Great point there. I like them more than Virginia. Virginia, where are they at? They're a 3 seed, correct?
They're 4 seed
4
against
seed. Furman.
Which is a matchup they should win easily.
Yeah, I would
but
agree.
We'll probably have to go up against San Diego State.
Which would be a game. Or Charleston. If Charleston were to be upset, that'd be crazy upset. But Charleston's a good team.
Right. Although I will say, if San Diego State wins, I think I'd feel pretty comfortable picking them over Virginia.
I would actually probably second that, honestly. It's the thing, I saw Virginia play. And here's the thing about Virginia. They went cold. They actually shot, I think, 29% from the floor against BC. That was the worst they shot all season. But they weren't great even defensively against BC. They're a great defensive team overall in the year, but they weren't great against BC defensively. So, especially in March Madness, you're only playing some teams that are ready. Obviously, and some teams are playing, Charleston, if they were to upset San Diego State, that'd be obviously a big upset. That's just what I'm throwing out there just because I like the Colonial Athletic Conference. That's where Northeastern plays. Charleston, obviously, is a team in there. So I'd root for that conference to get a win, obviously. But you're going to play against teams that are playing. Obviously, Virginia's playing to try to win March Madness, and every team wants to win it. But you're playing against a team like Charleston that's just happy to be there too at the same time. You know what I mean? They're playing with house money just being there. If they get a win, that's a lot of momentum. Look at what Oral Roberts did a few years ago. They're playing with a lot of momentum, and Oral Roberts was a second away from beating Arkansas and going to the Elite Eight.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. San Diego State I do like though. I'd say over Virginia in that matchup.
Another matchup that I think is interesting is Kentucky Providence.
Yep. I'm a big Kentucky guy, but it's a tough matchup.
I think it's you would look at it and not think it's a 6 seed, 11 seed matchup. To me, that reads like a 7-8 matchup because I feel like they are very close.
Yeah.
Talent wise,
I would agree.
I would agree. Providence had a rocky season at points, but I think they were still a very quality team.
Providence a good squad, definitely.
You know? And Kentucky
Had a good year.
underperformed based on what you'd expect, but
100%.
are still a very solid team.
Very good team overall. The 6 versus 11 there. You look at what Kentucky's done all in the year. 6-4 in the last 10, third in the SEC. I'm a Kentucky fan. I don't watch as much of them this year as I typically do in years past. I still would roll with them, obviously, through a couple games. Last year, I had them winning the tournament when I was actually watching more of their games, and then they lost, obviously, first round.
They felt like a world beater the last year, I will say.
Yeah, that was just devastating. I don't know how that happened, but at the end of the day, credit to St. Peter's. That's a team that just drilled threes. They drill big shots.
There you go.
That's what you need to do in March Madness. Drill big shots. Providence could have it in them. They obviously were highest seed last. I think they were 3 or 4 last year.
Yeah.
They were high seed last year. But their best player, Bryce Hopkins, actually is a transfer from Kentucky, having 16 points a game, 8 rebounds.
I did not know that.
Transfer from Kentucky.
That is interesting.
So we'll see how they obviously do. And then there's kind of a veteran lineup. Ed Croswell, he's been there. I think he's a senior now. After 13 points a game, 7 rebounds. He gets big boards, can make a couple big shots down low in the post. That's one thing with this Providence team, a vet team. I think that's what helps in a lot of these teams. If you look at Drake, that was a team I was just reading about. Yeah. They're all 23 years old in their lineup, except I think their one guy is 20, their best player.
That's another
player
thing
of the year
that's
in the conference.
Making things so messy in college basketball is the fact that you have these fifth-year guys because of COVID.
Exactly.
And I think that is a real benefit to teams that aren't the top of the recruiting. It's like being able to have a guy for, with 4
years in the system.
Yeah, 4 years as a starter.
Definitely. Exactly.
Which never happens, for like a 3-star. 3-star guys, start 1 or 2 years when
best.
Right.
If that's best case scenario. Yeah.
Now you have guys like they're old, like just stronger, more in shape, but also just being in the system that long, playing with the same group of guys. It's
definitely
hard to measure that.
Definitely, it's chemistry,
right? And especially compared to most of the top seeds are one and dones.
Yeah, a lot of them.
Your stars are one and dones. You have
Kentucky every year.
Right, you have role players who are 3 or 4 year guys, but usually, look at Alabama.
Yeah, definitely.
He ain't sticking around.
Yeah, no, you're not wrong about that. Duke, Villanova.
All those guys. Yes,
all those big recruits. They typically just do the one and done. Best case scenario, one and done. Stay healthy. Get drafted right away. If you get hurt, sometimes they come back for a second year, just try to get obviously another chance. But even when guys do get hurt, sometimes they still choose to go. Michael Porter Jr. still chose to go.
Look at Kyrie. He played 10 games.
Kyrie, exactly. Michael Porter Jr. Zion even got hurt, which everyone knew was going to be the first pick anyways. He got hurt towards the end of the year. Obviously didn't hurt, the Pelicans, chance of drafting, they still going to take him down to one overall. But point being is that sometimes you get a guy that's hurt and they come back a second year. Yes. Sometimes you don't, though. Like you said with Kyrie is a great example. I didn't even think of Kyrie. That was the first guy that came to my head, but great example.
But just to say, it's like this is the 5th year has definitely been a boon for smaller teams. It is. Just playing
basketball,
playing pickup games. Playing
Sports
against the guy who's
4
years older than you. It's different.
Definitely,
it's like you're gonna get pushed around more. Even doesn't matter how athletic you are.
They have a different view of the game too. When you play 4 years, you see someone who looks like a Tom Brady. Even though Brady didn't have the best year in Tampa Bay, he still can read looks and tell you what the defense is doing. Eli Manning could do that. I think it just helps playing. I'm not comparing myself to Eli knowing the game, but I'm just saying experience is huge.
Matters, yes.
Even if you're struggling, not having the best game out there, you can still see looks and say, even though I'm not going to hit this big shot, I know this guy's going to get open in the corner. Set this guy this way. Let's roll right. Someone drive down the lane, kick it out. You know the game of basketball, and you know that too. Being in the paint, you see things differently than I would at the top of the key. You know what I mean? That's how it is. Just like baseball.
Yeah, we'll talk about. Anyway,
it's different at shortstop versus being a catcher or a pitcher. You see the game differently. But I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, you're good.
Which we'll get into, obviously, talking basketball too, of course, the NBA. But
yeah,
we'll get Timmy and Matt on, and Timmy, Matt. Get them on, talk a little March Madness, and we'll probably talk anything sports. Probably talk a lot of NBA, which I know.
I was going to say, we should make this a basketball episode.
We can make this a lot of basketball.
There's a lot to talk about.
There's a lot to talk about in the NBA. We'll probably get their picks in March Madness and then obviously roll into some NBA talks. Let me get them on. Give me 1 minute to get everything coordinated, and I'll be back on with you guys in just 1 minute. Here we are live back on air on WZBC AM Sports Radio. I got Timmy on. I got Matt on. Two of the biggest sports fans I know. Two of the biggest fans of the show as well. Matt, longtime listener, obviously has called in before, and Timmy's probably the biggest listener I have. Always tuning in, always locked into the conversation, texting me his thoughts. Matt's come on before. Timmy, you have not, so welcome to the radio. Happy to have you on. Appreciate it. How you guys doing tonight?
Doing great.
How you doing, Matt?
Well here.
Great to have you guys on. I appreciate it. Thank you guys for taking the time. We'll start with some March Madness talk. Don't going to go crazy in depth. Obviously, it's a lot going on in the bracket with 64 teams. But we can start with maybe teams you like to fall off. I know, which we just talked before we got on air, Matt, you're a big Georgetown fan. You just gave a good stat about Georgetown that obviously would be against a 4 seed, right? Virginia. So you can repeat that stat because I liked it.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of went along the same lines of what you guys had said. Virginia, they play an unbelievable defense. The pack line, there's no denying it. It's really hard to score against them. But they were very pathetic offensively this year. And, Georgetown was 7-25, 2-18 in conference play. They averaged just under 70 points a game, 69.5 to be exact. And Virginia averages about 67. So usually when you're scoring less points than a team that won 2 games in conference play, that's not a good sign. It's hard to put a lot of stock in them.
That you're exactly right, and that's what the weaker ACC than typically in years past too. You got to factor that in as well. So
yeah, I mean they scored about 45 against BC this year.
Yeah, it was bad. They shot 29% from the floor,
and that wasn't a great BC team either.
No, you're right. BC was a big upset win for them, but considering how poorly Virginia shot that night, I mean, I don't know how you can be 4 seed. Which I understand overall in the whole season they had a good season overall record wise, but to be a 4 seed and be shooting 29% against BC is obviously not the best look. And averaging 67 a game under what Georgetown's doing isn't the best either. But Georgetown, though, that's a team that used to be in March Madness a lot. Obviously been struggling now in the last few years. But how do you feel about them firing the head coach? Obviously, Pat Ewing.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was a year or two too late. That one Big East tournament run that we had, I think it was during the COVID year, that kind of bought him a new lease on life that I don't think he necessarily should have gotten. But I think if they wanted to restore the program to what it could be and should be, then they had to move on from him because I think the experiment kind of failed. But I saw that there's a lot of links between Georgetown and Providence coach Ed Cooley, so that would be a fantastic interconference hire as well because that would knock Providence down a few pegs, I think.
Definitely.
And Cooley's a proven program guy, so it wouldn't be instant overnight success, but I think. But who knows with the new transfer portal too? Maybe he'd be able to garner some interest that way. But I think that would be a great hire to set Georgetown back in the right direction.
Definitely. And Ed Cooley's great at recruiting. That's a big piece, obviously. And Georgetown trying to get back on track, you need to be able to recruit. Very good school as well.
Yeah,
so
and I was going to say with the academics of Georgetown too, they're not typically able to get the one and done guys. I mean, not all that often. I mean, they had Iverson. That was kind of the one real example, but they more so need to get guys that are going to be there 2, 3, 4 years.
Jeff Green.
So I think having a guy like Cooley who's a program culture guy, it's just a good fit.
Definitely. I'd agree with you there. I wish they were in the bracket for you, but obviously it wasn't the best year. But maybe next year, you never know. Obviously, you're just going to get back on track.
Just 10 to 15 wins away. They just missed it.
That's a tough Big East, though. There's a lot of Big East teams, obviously, in this tourney and could make a potential run, obviously. So we'll start off any teams you guys like or don't like. Obviously, we started with Virginia. Tim, we were just talking about Charleston before we got on air. I like them as a potential upset. San Diego State's a very good team.
Exactly.
But Charleston plays the game very well. I watched them a lot over the years. They played against Northeastern. Their former head coach is now BC's head coach, Earl Grant. He's a great coach, recruited very well to that program. I think that could be potential upset. They shoot the 3 ball very well, too. So we'll see. But we'll start anywhere you guys want. I know you like Gonzaga, Timmy. I'm sorry what I was saying about them. I think they're a good team. Don't get me wrong. But I was saying in years past, they obviously were better. That's what we both agreed upon. They also have to play maybe TCU. I'm a big TCU fan. But we'll see what happens, though. You like Gonzaga. I know my mom does as well. They play the game, obviously, a strong way, shooting free throws, and that's what you need to do.
They were a Jesuit school, right? Gonzaga?
I believe so, yeah. I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. So you got them, obviously, no Loyola Chicago this year, so missing one there, unfortunately. It's a devastating loss. But, yeah, I like them to, obviously, if they get past TCU, they could obviously make a run. I think TCU's going to be a tough matchup for them. I think it'll be a tough game both ways.
So why am I hearing so much about Alabama? They're a great
I'll let you
team,
take that.
aren't there issues off the...
There's issues off the court with the team.
Yeah.
Their best player had some accusations come out about him in a situation he was involved in off the court. He's still playing, though. It seems like he might have got past that. Great player, though, overall on the court. Obviously, you don't want the things off the court, to be in your mind or in discussion. So that's obviously a disruption in the locker room. Obviously,
unless any of these players get arrested, I don't really see it affecting their play.
Yeah,
because they came out after all the news came out. They showed up and blew the doors off every team they played after that.
Yeah.
We'll see if that continues. I don't know. But
it seems like
they looked really good.
It seems like it might have propelled them maybe just with everything. But they're a very good team. They score the ball very well. They're right up there in points per game. That's one thing that helps. And obviously they're finding a groove.
They they've got a ton of. They do an interesting thing on defense where they do drop coverage off of any pick and roll, where they kind of just dare anybody to take floaters. So I think that they're one of the top teams in the country that allow the most floaters, which they're about from the foul line out over a 7-footer. So it's not a high percentage shot.
You're right. Yeah. I love how you bring the stats in. I was just telling Dylan before I got you guys on that you came on to talk about the Celtics and the NBA playoffs. You brought a million stats in that were all drilled accurate. It was nuts. He brought a million stats and everything was right. The Celtics would, I think you said in 5, they won in 4. I had the Nets in 7, I think.
I apologize to the listeners for getting that one wrong. I should have known that the Celtics were going to sweep the Nets.
I think you had them in 5, which is nuts. Because I don't think anyone would have had them in anything less than 6 or 7. But you had them in 5. You brought really good stats that backed it up. You made a great point, which I was a victim of this. He said, you said live on air and you drilled it. He said, I think you're getting too caught up in the names game. You have Kyrie Irving, Kevin Durant. You're too caught up in them and not talking about like the team as a whole. And you were right. I think I just bought into the names too much. With obviously Kevin Durant being still a top 3 player in the NBA, I bought into that team maybe too much, more than I should have. More than I should have as a Celtics fan too. So what can you do? But you brought in great stats and obviously you bring an insight to all sports. I'm excited to hear what you have about March Madness. We can go as far as you guys want into it. Maybe talk about winners. Timmy, you got Gonzaga. So that's who you got, correct?
I got Gonzaga, but I mean, I always like to. This is what I love about March Madness. There's always a Cinderella. There's usually a Cinderella
every year
team. So
every year,
I'm wondering if that's Charleston, but we'll see.
It's not impossible. And UNC was in 11 last year. They made a run.
Maybe they won't make it to the final, but maybe they'll make it far. So.
They could. I mean, if they win one game, I think that's huge momentum going into the next one. Always, just winning one game, winning your first game for any team, even the favorite teams. Winning that first game is obviously big momentum going into the second one. Because if you lose, obviously you're out. But I think if you just win, especially the underdog, you usually catch fire and go on runs. Like Oral Roberts did. We were talking about that 10 minutes ago. Oral Roberts got hot and they went on that big run. So it's not impossible. It's just about playing the game the right way. And Charleston can shoot the ball. And I think that's a big thing.
I feel like there's always at least one that makes the elite.
I think they've got like 5 guys that average about 10 points a game too. Yep. So it's like they don't have like one player that you can try to shut down. It's pretty unique. It's like a total team effort.
Definitely. And like you were just saying, that point you just said, I mean.
Yeah. I mean, it's like when you make your bracket, it's like you don't see a team where it's like, oh, this is the 11th seed that's going to make the Elite 8. But every year there is usually at least one.
One double-digit seed,
right? Or 8 to 11,
That makes at least a Sweet 16.
Yeah.
And that's why it's hard to pick which one's going to be that one. Exactly. That's the thing. That's the impossible thing. Yeah. If I could pick one team to make a run that's like a double-digit seed, I don't know. That's the hard thing because I think like if Vermont wasn't playing Marquette, I like Marquette a lot. I think Vermont actually could win a game if they weren't playing Marquette. I like Marquette to make a run, so I can't take them against Vermont. But Vermont winning, I think it was 15 games in a row. They haven't lost a game since I think January 22nd or something like that, 21st. They haven't lost a game in just about 2 months. I like that team a lot. I wish they weren't playing Marquette because I would have taken them to win at least a game or 2. I'm trying to think, though, what team. NC State, I like them, actually, if I had to pick a team to win a couple games. They're playing Creighton, a good Creighton team that can shoot the ball well. Creighton's a good team. Then they'd have to face Baylor, which is a tough matchup. But like we were saying, I think the Big 12's kind of all over the place with what teams that, what team can make a run or not. Like you said, it could be an upset.
They're overseeded.
I agree.
I just think that they benefited from a perception of them as being a great conference.
Because you rank everything based on how you play against your other opponents, your strength of schedule. And their strength of schedule is pretty high because every team in the Big 12 is good. So that's why they're all highly ranked. But I like NC State to make a slight run. Do you guys have any Cinderellas that could potentially make a run or a big upset pick maybe in the first round that a team maybe doesn't have to make a big run, but let's say Drake beats Miami. I don't know if you guys have any of those takes, but
I think that I think Memphis, if they can beat Florida Atlantic, I think they can give Purdue a run for their money because
I would
Memphis
agree.
I think that Purdue, they're a good team, and Eddie's having an incredible year. He's arguably the best player in college basketball.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
The thing that's unique about them is, if you're going to double Eddie, he's a good post passer as well, so they'll be able to swing the ball around, find the open shooter.
Definitely.
But I just think Memphis they're such a big, physical, tough team, that they were able to compete with Houston and take that game all the way to the wire. And I think they showed they were able to play against the best team, arguably in college basketball. I think they can give Purdue a run for their money as well.
Definitely, I'd agree with you there. That's a good take. There, I like Memphis a lot. I love Penny Hardaway, so I would side with you on that one. If Memphis could just get past Florida Atlantic, I think they could win that game.
Yeah, and I feel like they're pretty underseeded. Like not underseeded, but they sort of underperformed where they usually expected to.
Definitely. An 8 seed, they could definitely be a 5 or 6 talent-wise.
They've been like a fringe top 25 team, and I think they might have finished the year in the top 25.
Yeah, I think so too.
After the game that they lost, because they only lost by like five or 7 points against Houston. So
yeah, that's a great point. He just said that they were undefeated, and you were right too. 8 seed there. I think it's because the Big 12 is so highly ranked. Like you said, there's so many teams that are on the 5 seeds.
And they aren't in the greatest conference. It's pretty top heavy. Similar with Gonzaga, St. Mary's type of situation. But
definitely.
Again, those two have a little bit more precedence than Memphis and Houston.
100%. I would agree with you there.
Is Purdue going to make it to the Final Four?
I don't know. They're a very good team. I think if any of the 1 seeds were to fall early, it'd be either them or who's my other one? I said them or Houston would be my one to fall.
They have a very tough.
They're in the toughest bracket, I think.
That bracket has a lot of landmines.
The East is very good. We were just breaking it down before we got on air. I like a lot of teams.
I think it's the most interesting part of it. Just
definitely.
It's like if you're asking me to pick a Cinderella, it'd probably be Kentucky at 11 or
Kentucky at 6 versus Providence 11. Yep.
Yeah, or Michigan State.
Yeah.
At 7. Both of those teams look quietly scary to me. And then at the same time, they'd have to beat Marquette.
Definitely.
That's a very tough road. Or Kansas State. I mean, those are...
That whole side. Yeah. Duke, Memphis, Purdue, they're all good. Tennessee, Kentucky, Providence, even Kansas State, which I think it's just another Big 12 thing being highly ranked. I think they probably could have been a 4 or 5.
Actually, they're a good team, though. They're like one of the few Big 12 teams that I really do believe in.
No, they're a good team, though.
Yeah.
They're a good team.
Sometimes Providence surprises me. They always think they're a powerhouse, and I don't know. Sometimes they don't step up.
No, you're right. No, you're not wrong about that. They were 3 seed or 4 seed last year, I think. I think they're 4 seed.
It's been a down year for them too.
Yeah,
like they're usually known for their defense and their kind of grit, but this year it's more they put up a lot more points a game. They're also giving up a lot of points.
They're shooting more.
It's kind of uncharacteristic. I was just praising Ed Cooley, but
yes.
I don't know if it's him or the kids, but it's been a little uncharacteristic of them this year. They're not like as mentally tough as most Providence teams have been.
I would agree with you there. Maybe it's just the conference too is going more towards scoring too.
It's a really competitive conference this year. I mean, Villanova didn't even make the tournament, and they were unranked, and that's just how good the Big East is now.
Yeah, and that's another thing. That's why I love a lot of teams in the Big East. Which he's a St. John's fan, so obviously Big East squad there. That's another team that could have made it in and didn't. That's another team that's on the fringe, right? They're probably
it would have been generous.
They're probably like the last. So there's the first 4 out, then there's the next 4. They were probably in that next 4 out. Realistically, they were still within 10 probably. A good team, but. That's how good the Big East is. I mean, it's just competitive. Villanova's a team that makes it in every year, just about. Yeah. They didn't make it in. UNC, ACC wasn't even as good this year, and they didn't make it in. I think that's it with college basketball this year. There could be a million upsets because I feel like it's just so much more even, at least within the top teams, than it typically is. There's no number one favorite where everyone's going all in on them. Like every year, usually Gonzaga, that's a team everyone's going all in on. Right. I think there could be any of these teams that could win, especially considering the 1 seeds with. I think Kansas might be the best one of them, but a lot of people might go Alabama. I think it's just – I feel like there's a million ways you would go with your bracket, a lot more than in years past, I would say. And that's why I like that it's wide open. You could see a team like Charleston make a run. Who knows? But I think –
Let's go, Charleston.
You never know. I would agree with you. But I think that east side of the bracket's the toughest one, though. Oral Roberts, Duke, Marquette, Vermont. I like Vermont. As I said, I would have taken Vermont against – if you flip it, and I'm taking Vermont, if there are 2 and they're playing UCLA, I actually may take Vermont in that game. It might sound crazy, but I like Vermont the way they play.
Did Vermont just maybe, I have this right, did they just beat UMass Lowell?
They did beat UMass Lowell. They won the American East Tournament by winning that. Yeah, huge. They're a good team. They play the game very well, and 15 wins in a row, too, which is nuts.
Yeah.
Hard to do. So I would have liked them. What were you saying, Matt? I'm sorry to interrupt.
As I heard you kind of say, you thought the East region was the toughest too. I think it's the Midwest is an extremely tough region too. I mean, considering Houston, they're the number 1 overall seed. They have to play essentially an away game if they and Auburn make it to the second round because that game's going to be in Alabama. Which
you're right.
I mean, I don't know who let that happen, but
yeah, I don't know how that happened either. That's like
I think that Houston might take it because Houston might take it though because the Final Four I believe is in Houston, so they'd have a last 2 final games assuming they make it there, but. With their star player out injured, I don't know what his timetable for return is. That could be a game that busts a lot of brackets. I think, assuming Auburn can pull off their first round matchup against Iowa.
Definitely, yeah. He's out with that groin injury, Marcus Sasser, and I think he was the Player of the Year in the conference. American Athletic Conference Player of the Year in his 17 a game. So he's a big loss, obviously offensively and even defensively as well. He averaged 1.7 steals a game. So that's a big loss, like you said. And I don't know how they really structured that, giving them basically a home game, which I don't know how they figure those things out. But maybe it's they love Alabama, like you were saying. Maybe just that's how it goes. The selection committee loves Alabama in football always, so could be the same thing in basketball.
Yeah.
But I think the Midwest one's
SEC
pretty
bias.
interesting. It is SEC bias for sure. It brings in all the money. That's why. That's how it goes.
I think in that Midwest, I think Iowa State, that's a tough 6 seed too. I mean, they force the most turnovers in the entire country with the way they play their defense. The no middle, I believe it's called. It was Chris Beard's defense from a few years ago at Texas Tech.
Mm-hmm.
It's incredible to watch. I mean, they force college kids to make tough decisions, and when you do that, you force young enough guys to make those types of decisions. They're probably going to make the wrong one enough times. So. I always think it's a bunch of turnovers, and their record's a bit misleading just, again, because they played in such a strong conference.
Definitely. I would agree with you. They play good defense. Another team that, talking about forcing turnovers, Marquette was one of the best in the country at forcing turnovers. They'll make you force over 20 times a game. Different defense than Iowa State runs, but that Iowa State team could make a run. It's a tough 6. I don't really think too much about them on that right side, but that's a good point. I probably was going to go Texas on that right side. They'd have to play Texas later on.
I have Texas. That's who I have Texas coming out of the Midwest. But
that's probably what I have too as of now. I still got to finalize my bracket. I don't really get to finalize things yet.
Joe.
You're getting there. You're just listening now for insight. You're doing some homework.
I got to finalize my bracket too.
You're doing some homework, Timmy. I love it. You're doing your homework.
Matt has created a bracket for, which is to have a little tournament with our families.
There you go. A little money involved, a little $5 bet turns into maybe $100.
Yeah, exactly.
There you go. Why not? Maybe $10 when you sell a couple hundred. Timmy, you might do it. I trust.
So I'm gathering all this information, and then I'll make my choices.
I love it. I wish I did a breakdown of each matchup, which I'll probably try to do before Thursday. I didn't get to do it today, which I'll try to give more insights. Maybe you'll hear that. Timmy, I'll let you know what I got on the rest of those. But that Midwest bracket, that was tough, though. I would agree with you there. I like Kennesaw State, even though I think Xavier wins that game. Kennesaw State, another team that's coming in hot, playing good basketball, can shoot the ball well, and force turnovers, too. So that's a tough Midwest. I would agree with you there. So for winners overall, that's the thing. I don't really have my full bracket done yet, so if I had to pick a winner right now, I maybe would roll with, I guess, Kansas winning again. I don't know. That's how I'd feel as of now. But I like TCU to make a run though in that West bracket. But if you guys had to pick a winner right now, I know you got Gonzaga, Timmy, Matt. If you had to pick a winner right now, who do you got? Which it could change.
When I filled out my bracket, I had the final was Alabama versus Texas.
I like that.
Texas has kind of just really put it all together, and I know Bill Self wasn't at the game, and Kansas has some injuries going on as well, but they absolutely dismantled Kansas in that Big 12 championship because I had a lot of doubts about Texas, the team, but they just look so complete. They can score from every phase of the game. They play incredible defense. They're pretty deep. I just feel like they kind of just have what it takes. They have the good mixture of underclassmen and upperclassmen. I really like their coach, so I was rolling with Texas.
I like Texas there too, actually. I'd probably take them right now coming out of the Midwest with you. I think that's my pick as of now there too. I would say Kansas as of now just because even though they did get blown out in that Big 12 game, all year long can score consistently. But that's another thing. I mean, I feel like you can get a team that gets cold, and Kansas got really cold in that game against Texas, obviously. But they have an easier road, at least to the top half of it. They play either Arkansas or Illinois if they get out of that first game, then win that, maybe even play St. Mary's or VCU, UConn, Iona. So they have an easier road to get to that Elite Eight there in that top half. That's why I had Kansas there. But we'll see.
A&M's a tough game for Texas.
A&M's good.
Second round.
I would agree with you there. That is a tough game, but I think they can win that one. That's obviously a good rivalry too, having Texas A&M, Texas. That obviously be a fun one to watch. Then who do you got winning it, Dylan? If you had to pick one right now, which these can change. I know all 3-4 of us have agreed. We obviously didn't do as much research we wanted to coming in as we did research, but we all obviously wanted to do probably more. So do not set to anything here.
I'd say gun to my head, probably Marquette.
Marquette. I like Marquette too.
But I'm going to say that, what team looks the strongest right now? Probably Alabama.
Bama, yeah.
That could change.
I hope they don't win, though.
Yeah, I know you're not a big Bama guy. I know that.
Yeah, it's enough that they're good at football.
Too much Alabama.
Too much Alabama, yeah.
I 100% agree. I'll say Marquette.
I like Marquette coming out of there, too. I actually have Marquette, one of the ones I filled out within 3 minutes when I was coming back from class. So
school, by the way, it's Marquette.
They're a good squad, too. They're a good team. Another Big East team, too. Love it. Yeah, you got to root for the Jesuit schools for sure. I like that. No BC in there, so we already lost one, unfortunately. BC obviously didn't have the best year, but they're obviously making progress, which is good. That's what they got to do. But so you got Alabama obviously making a run. I think all of us could probably agree Alabama making a run, except maybe Timmy, you probably want to root against them maybe in that game if they were to play. It would be Charleston, actually, if they were to make a run and play each other in the Sweet 16. If they both made a run, obviously. But Timmy has his Final Four picks are Bama, Duke, Houston, UCLA. His son, Timmy. He's got Bama, Duke, Houston, UCLA, Bama, UCLA final, and he's got UCLA getting the win. I know he's a big UCLA guy, so I'd hope that for his sake.
He loves UCLA.
I know he's a big UCLA guy. He's stayed with them for years now, which I like.
And every sport, too.
UCLA football. Yeah, I remember. He was a big fan back in the day, the Rosen days.
Oh, my God.
He's a fan. I love it, though. I love that he stayed loyal to that team. That's not a bad pick. UCLA, a lot of people have coming out. And they're healthy for the most. Even though they lost their point guard, I think it was... Let me see what his name is. I had it written down here. Jalen Clark out for the year with an Achilles injury. He's a defensive player during the Pac-12. They had another guard coming back healthy. So finding some help and losing some. Yes, you got it down right there. One guy coming back healthy, one guy obviously hurt. So it obviously doesn't help health-wise. But they get one guy back, which is a big, big piece. And then obviously losing the defensive player of the year, not the best. But they can score the ball. I mean, when it comes to March Madness, you need teams that can hit some clutch shots. UCLA can do that. And that's obviously big. So... we'll see what happens. But now we can transition. I was talking NBA, MLB, NFL. There's a lot to talk about in the NBA. We can start off with the Celtics, start off with the Knicks. He's a Knicks fan, so we'll talk both Celtics, Knicks, NBA landscape. What have you guys seen?
I have no idea what happened last night.
Obviously, a tough loss to the Rockets. Hey, it's only one game, though. And I think what the Celtics are doing is what the Clippers are doing, what the Warriors are doing, what a lot of teams in the NBA are doing. My mom told me this a few weeks ago. I agree with her. Some teams are just waiting for the playoffs to a degree. I'm not saying it's the best strategy, but some teams are waiting for the playoffs. The Celtics losing to the Rockets, if they were, let's say the Celtics were a 7 seed and they needed that win to get in, they'd obviously be mad. The Celtics will come back. I think they play tomorrow night against Minnesota. They'll come back and probably be rejuvenated, be refreshed. I think it's a long NBA season.
I just want them to have home court advantage in the playoffs.
Well, they're only a half game ahead of, I think, is Philadelphia now for the second seed. So
they're a full game ahead.
A full game ahead. All right, they're a full game ahead of Philadelphia. Okay.
But it is pretty close.
Yeah, what have you guys seen from the Celtics,
Philly's
Matt?
rattled off like 5 straight.
Yeah, Philly's been on a run. And James Harden, obviously, with Maxey and Embiid, has shown to be a better big three than they had with, obviously, Simmons being there before. And obviously, they tried with Tobias Harris being part of the big three. That didn't really work. He's better as a role player. But what have you seen from the Celtics, though, Matt? I know you obviously bring a lot of insight into the Celtics. You're a big NBA fan. What have you seen from them all year long? Obviously, the last few games hasn't been the best, but all year long, they've been a consistent team that's obviously been right up there with the Bucks, the Nuggets being the best teams in the NBA.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. I mean, what's nice about this Celtics team compared to the Celtics teams in the past is that the Celtics team actually has some bench scoring and depth. They can lean on Brogdon to come and lead the second unit, give Tatum and Brown less responsibility and less minutes in some of those secondary lineups, which is huge for preserving their longevity because it's a long season. And last year we kind of saw that they eventually ran out of gas just from playing so many minutes in so many games. So being able to have some secondary guys come off the bench and carry some of that burden has been huge. And similar to Milwaukee, I feel like the Celtics' actual starting five hasn't played a lot of games and minutes together.
Yeah.
Because Williams is hurt, or Tatum and Brown have missed some time.
Horford's missed a little.
Knocks along the way. Yeah, Smart's missed some games. Horford, load management, and also some nagging injuries. So I think along with Milwaukee, there's Milwaukee more so since they've won 20 of their last 22. They're hitting their stride at the right time, and Middleton seems to be fully healthy again. He had a huge game this weekend, but I think the Celtics are going through a little bit of a rough patch right now, but hopefully they can start to turn around. I think they'll be playing overall really good basketball.
I would agree with you there. I think it's just a tough stretch, like you said. I think they could be victim of the waiting for the playoffs to start. I think that could be the real case, which I know that's not a strategy you want. I don't like that the Clippers are doing what they're doing all year and the Warriors are doing what they're doing all year long, where if they lose a game losing 4 out of 6 or 4 of 6 in their last 10 or whatever, they don't really care as much because these are teams that are waiting for the playoffs. The Celtics obviously going to make a run no matter what seed they are. I think that might be the case. Some teams are getting bored of the NBA regular season, which I'm not a fan of. I wish guys played more games in the regular season. There was less load management, but that's just the way the NBA is nowadays. Is load management's part of the game, which I don't know if it's for good or for bad. I'm not a big fan of it, but you're a big Knicks guy. They typically play most games, actually. The Knicks, they don't really have much load management.
Thibodeau just runs everyone for 40 minutes, so, like, if you get hurt, you get hurt.
Plays 7 guys, 42 minutes a pop.
I mean, I feel like we should talk about it a little bit, that Celtics-Knicks double overtime game.
Nuts.
I think, so the Knicks Randall and Emmanuel quickly both played 55 minutes.
Yeah, it was 55 and then 50 plus for three guys.
It's absurdity.
Emmanuel quickly was skipping around like he didn't even. He just came off the bench in that second overtime.
Yeah,
like,
with some new juice.
Yes, probably my favorite performance all year. But I don't want to blame them too much around all these Celtics fans.
No, you're good. You're good. You're good. I think the Knicks Celtics fans, we have a little bit of respect for each other. I mean, you guys had a tough, rough patch, and Celtics really didn't have too much of a rough patch. But we were both good for a while together, and then the Celtics fell off for a year or two, and then the Knicks have been off for. They were on a couple years ago, and the last year was tough. But I think basketball is better when Boston teams and New York teams. I think any sports in general. Sports are better when New York and Boston teams are better. That's just a reality.
Agreed. Yeah, I really like this Knicks team a lot too because it reminds me of the IT Celtics where they're really fun and cute in the regular season, but I know they're not going to do anything in the playoffs. So just to get my shot in at the New York fan.
I can't say you're 100% wrong. They definitely have a lot of issues. They're, I think, by far the heaviest ISO team in the league.
The Clippers were before Russ, and now they've better spacing.
Like one of the lowest assist rates in the league. Not a great 3-point shooting team. RJ Barrett takes way too many shots.
Inconsistent.
Yeah, that's true.
But they're also a really fun team, and they're going to be matching
100%.
up probably against the Cavs.
A great defensive team too, mind you.
Right.
Yeah, that's going to be
That'd be a bloodbath.
I feel like the Cavs are at least like a matchup
Great
they could probably win. Like if they go up against the Celtics or whatever, like
right now, I'd say go 6 games. I'd say at least 6 or 7.
Like Philly would wait before with us. I feel very comfortable saying that. But
Embiid's tough. You got to have someone to cover
and they've been
Embiid.
playing well.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Philly's been playing great. The Knicks have turned things around, and obviously the Bucks are still a favorite. I'd say in the East, even though I'd say the Celtics they're right there with them. But betting favorites, I think the Bucks are still a favorite to come out of the East.
Yeah.
But I think it'll be fun to watch what happens in the East because I think the East, at least last couple of years, obviously the Celtics, Bucks have been really good. The Sixers, but the Heat usually are really good. They don't have as good of a year. There's teams having down years that usually better. That's one thing that can help, obviously, to make a run, which is nice.
I want to ask a general question and get your guys' feedback. Something we've been talking about a lot before is that this year there's a lot of teams that had high expectations that have been kind of floundering. So, what do you guys think of, let's say, the Heat, the Warriors, Clippers, and the Lakers? Because to me, those are all teams that came in with big expectations, but right now we're floating just on the bubble in the playoffs.
That's why 4 of the top 8 NBA Finals favorites coming into the year too, and they're all on the bubble. I'll start off with I guess the Clippers, which you guys all know I'm a big Clippers fan. Everyone knows I'm a big Clippers fan.
Joe.
Huge. You know that. You listen in. I know you do. The one thing with the Clippers was in years past I could rely on everyone was hurt. And I couldn't rely on this year because everyone's been healthy. I mean, Kawhi missed about 25 games, but for the most part, everyone's been healthy. That's healthy for Kawhi, and you're getting a lot of games out of it, which is good. And Kawhi's been great the last 10, 15 games. He looks like a top 7 player in the NBA, like he should be. Talent-wise, he's there, obviously. But I could always rely on the Clippers being hurt. I haven't been able to rely on that this year, but I have been able to rely on they didn't have a backup center for 3/4 of the season that they've played so far, and they finally got one at the trade deadline getting Plumlee. They didn't have a point guard, really, at the end of the day. Reggie Jackson was on the downtrend. John Wall, they just stopped playing him a month and a half before they traded him. John Wall's knees were done, even though I like John Wall, but it didn't work out. They didn't have a point guard. They didn't have a backup center. I could rely on that. They're starting to get those pieces, and they're starting to turn things around. I love Russell Westbrook, so I'm a fan of that move. I'll get Matt's opinion on that in a second. I know you probably have either a good opinion of Russ or a bad one. I know we never talked about him, but I feel like everyone's always loves Russ or hates Russ, so that's why I say that.
He's a defensive player.
Yeah, you're on one side of the spectrum with Russ or the other always. But as for the Heat, I guess you could start with, I guess they're not shooting as well. Kyle Lowry's taking a little bit of a step back. They could have made some trades at the deadline to get another piece. They were in talks to get a guy like Kyrie Irving, Zach LaVine they were looking at even, OG Anunoby they were looking at. They didn't want to fair ways with Lowry because Jimmy Butler loves Lowry. They didn't want to get rid of Tyler Hero. I would keep Tyler Hero over all those guys. That's maybe just because I'm biased. I love Hero, Kentucky guy, obviously. As for the Lakers, I don't know. I would say I guess they didn't have the best rotation in the bench first half of the season. Now they're starting to obviously figure it out at the trade deadline.
But they're still pretty low. I think they're
at 8 or 9.
Yeah, they're in the play-in right now.
Yeah. So I'll get you guys' opinion on that, Matt. We'll start with you. Clippers, Lakers, Heat, Warriors. Start anywhere in between. You can group all of them together, whatever you like.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Warriors are because this will be the quickest and easiest one. I mean, I think that they're record-wise, it's not great, but they've had so many injuries, and now it seems like everybody's healthy and everything's going their way at the right time, kind of just like always. So it doesn't really matter where they're going to shake out in the seeding. If they make the playoffs, they're going to be a contender. There's just that's just kind of it is what it is at this point.
I did want to say they are 7-3 in the last 10.
7-3 in the last 10.
They are rallying, but sorry.
Continue. Yeah. No, thank you. But for the Clippers, Joe, I thought, Westbrook I thought it was a good pickup. I mean, it's an upgrade from Reggie Jackson. It's an upgrade from John Wall. I know that's a pretty low bar, but I feel like he still has a lot left in the tank. He's an above average passer. He's a great athlete. I don't know what's going on or what happened with his jump shooting. I mean, it's just kind of crazy that he's getting like the Ben Simmons, Draymond Green treatment out there, but I feel like he'll be able to find a way to continue to contribute because Kawhi Leonard, to your point, I mean, ever since his minutes restrictions are lifted and he's been playing. He's even played some back-to-backs, which I never thought I'd see that happen again.
Never. Paul George is doing the same, which is wild.
Yeah, that game against the Kings, that ridiculous double
176, 175. Yeah, it's quite a game.
I mean, he played the whole game, and then him and Paul George the very next night, or either the very next night or one night in between, they both were out there playing. Which
it was right after.
So I mean. And the output you're getting from him, there's no wasted movement. Every single step he takes is so efficient and calculated, and he's just playing incredible basketball right now. So I think that once the playoffs come, it's that core is going to be good enough to at least make a run.
Definitely. I would agree with you about the Russell Westbrook point. I think one thing the Clippers were really bad at was they love the ISO ball, and they weren't good in transition. Now with Russell Westbrook, they're one of the best teams in transition over the last 8 games with Russ. Their offensive ratings around 5 or 6 in the NBA. They're averaging, I think, 5th best points per game since they added Russ, which is good. They're starting to score the ball more. They're starting to shoot better. And Russell Westbrook, over his whole career historically, has been great with 2 things. Shooting around him. He's always been great at driving, kicking it out. And he's been great with the big man that can help, with the pick and roll. Zubac's been great with that. Zoo's been good with that. And also Plumlee. I think Russ is going to thrive in this Clippers system. Obviously, there's only 15 games left to go, but I think he's going to thrive for the rest of the season, hopefully make a run. It's a great point, like you said, that obviously with Kawhi Leonard being fully healthy, that's a big piece. And Paul George is starting to play more back-to-backs than I would have ever expected. So That's a great thing. And then, like you said about the Warriors, I would agree with. I think that's a team just like the Celtics, which the Celtics aren't as bad as the Warriors, obviously record-wise, but I think both teams are just waiting for the playoffs. I think that's the way it is, which I'm not saying it's the best strategy because you obviously want to be playing your best basketball mid-April, just about right before you jump into the playoffs. But the Celtics, I think they know they can take any team in the NBA within 7 games. So I think they're just, probably losing to the Rockets is obviously not a great thing, but they're not going to be coming at each other in the locker room, So that's at least a good thing.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I would agree with that.
Definitely. And how do you feel, Timmy, about the Celtics? You think they can make a run?
Yep, definitely. I think this is the.
I thought
it was just kind of interesting at with the coach thing and.
Yeah, Udoka.
He did not miss a beat. The
Mazzulla.
current guy. So,
yeah, Mazzulla's been great. I mean, a lot of his late game decisions have been one way or the other, whether they should call a timeout or they shouldn't. He's not always deciding, the best way. But one thing that you can look at is the Celtics are winning games. So even if he's not making the best timeout call at the right time, the Celtics obviously probably should have beat the Rockets. I don't think that comes down to X's and O's. It probably comes down to Jason Tatum having a better game. I think Mazzulla stepping in the position he did. He's doing great for what he's been doing. So he's still learning at the same time. He's only, I think, 32 or 33 years old.
I think he just connects with them. He has personalities he has to deal with. I think he does a good job with that.
Definitely.
Yeah. I never thought I would say that it was time for Brad to move on, and I think it was a good time.
Definitely. And Brad, he's been great with the front office. Yeah. It's one guy that's been excelling there in the front office. So that's obviously big. But we'll see what happens in the East, though. I know you obviously have your talks about the West. I think the West is... The Western Conference is very close. Obviously, 5 through 12 is separated by about 2 or 3 games. That's the one conference I think it's going to be tough to see who comes out of there. I think I would take the Clippers now because that's my team. But I think the East, it's going to come down to 4 teams. The West, it could come down to 4 or 5, depending on what Denver Nuggets you get, what Sacramento Kings team you get.
My opinion about the Heat is that this is just history. We always used to say, Joe, you know this, beat the Heat, right?
Beat the Heat, yeah. Not big LeBron fans,
I've never liked them. So that's just kind of, there's really not a lot of substance about that, but it's probably more history than anything.
I would agree with you there.
I was gonna say too. I kind of had even going into the off season this year. I kind of had a take about the Heat. I don't know if it's a hot take or what, but I was saying that they should blow it up because they should move on from Lowry. They should move on from Butler. See what they can put around Bam and Hero, and see if they can put a longer term project together. Because I think you've seen what their ceiling is. Jimmy Butler and Lowry aren't getting any younger. You have something with Bam. I don't know what to make of Tyler Hero. So why pretend to compete and be phonies when you could, just try and get some draft picks back, get some assets in the door, and then go from there. Because I don't think that as they're constructed, they can win.
I think the hope was that last year the East was pretty weak. There was a lot of injuries going around. Outside of the Celtics, almost every team had a major player hurt, which allowed the Heat to make a deep run. And I think there was hope that that would happen again, I guess. Whereas I think the exact opposite has happened. I think the West looks really weak, and now the East, I think it's a top 3 or a top 4. But I 100% agree with you now looking at it. I think this Heat team's going nowhere. Lowry's toast. I think we all agree.
Oh, yeah, he's regressed, definitely.
Butler is great, but...
Agreed. I agree with that.
I love Jimmy. Yeah, I'm a big Jimmy fan.
They probably do have to move him just because this current team...
isn't going to win.
No, they don't have... the bench is good. Obviously, Hero's great. But,
they have a decent bench.
Outside of Bam, it's what starters do they have that are, even above average?
Yeah. It's hard. I think one thing they probably were hoping was kind of what happened last year when Lowry got hot towards the end of the season and then was good in the playoffs. Yeah. They probably were hoping for that same thing. That's why they didn't trade him. But they were in talks with Zach LaVine, DeMar DeRozan, OG Anunoby, Kyrie Irving even. They didn't really get too involved in all those since they didn't want to part ways with Lowry or Hero. I would keep Hero. Lowry I would have parted ways with.
I don't even think they could have moved him if they wanted to. Lowry.
That could have been a smokescreen too, though.
Yeah.
Maybe they didn't want to even trade for those guys. They used that we don't want to trade Lowry as an excuse. That could be part of it too.
I don't think
maybe no one wanted Lowry.
I don't think anyone was taking calls on LaVine. I think the Bulls front office was out to lunch then. But anyway,
they probably were out to lunch. Yeah, that team's going nowhere. The Bulls too, unfortunately.
That's a great point. That's a great point you made too, though, about the Heat. How last year, everything, the stars aligned perfectly for them to walk into the conference finals, and they still came up short. That everything that could have possibly went their way did, and that they still weren't good enough to get over the hump. So I mean, at that point, maybe a conference finals appearance and one game away from making it to the finals. It's hard to say, okay, let's blow it up. But it's also tough to that's a tough way to look in the mirror and say and try to admit that, especially when you're that close.
Yeah,
I would agree with you there. That's the hard thing about the NBA in today's day, especially is it's hard to be with any sport, football even too. It's hard to be 1 foot in, 1 foot out. It's hard to try to rebuild and also while try to win. So I think the Heat's game plan probably was, let's roll with the team we have, at least for the deadline, and maybe see if we can turn things around. Then probably in the offseason, like you said, they could move on from guys like Jimmy Butler and Lowry. I don't think they want to do a huge reconstruction mid-season since, even though Lowry's not really great anymore, it'd obviously be a different offense without him, and you'd obviously have to get a point guard to at least try to make a run in the playoffs.
Gabe Vincent's not really going to be. He's not really starting point guard material.
No,
in the interim
he's great off the
period,
bench. So he's a good shooter off the bench. But you don't want him starting. And that's another thing in today's NBA as well is you need a good bench, and that team doesn't really. They have a good bench, but you can't really rely on guys coming off the bench to give you the points that Lowry used to have. So Lowry used to give you 25 a game, 23 a game. Not every night, but he could go for 25 in a blink, but he's not really that player anymore. He's regressed. Some other point guards in the league that are regressing at the same time. Chris Paul's not scoring like he used to. I think he's averaging still 14 a game, but he can't shoot anymore.
That's actually a team we didn't even bring up.
Phoenix, the Phoenix Suns, Sacramento Kings. What do you think of those teams, Matt?
The Kings have been the most pleasant surprise. I think they're very fun to watch. I think that Fox and Sabonis that's an incredible combination. You've got some really really strong role players on that team. You got Malik Monk. They went out and traded for Kevin Herter.
Davion Mitchell.
Murray.
Yep.
Davion
Murray.
Mitchell's. They have something there for probably the first time in a long time. It's exciting to see. I really hope they don't screw it up. But that franchise has a terrible track record. But I don't know if this year they're going to make noise in the playoffs. But I think that this could be the start of the Kings actually being a team to take seriously.
I would agree with you there. I think they can win a series, maybe depending on what the matchup is. I do think they're still probably a year away from trying to win an NBA Finals. But to be a second seed and be rebuilding and with no expectations coming into the year, being where you're at, it's just obviously huge. It's kind of like the Giants. I mean, the Giants obviously weren't the second overall team in the NFC, but to make the playoffs when you don't really have the expectations going in is huge. It shows a lot of progress. It shows a step in the right direction. So that's at least one big thing for the Kings, and they made a right decision. You make a big trade, you trade a guy like Tyrese Halliburton. Not always does it work out for both teams. It worked out at least for Indiana since they wanted to move on from Sabonis. They got an all-star point guard in Tyrese Halliburton, and then obviously the Kings finally got a forward since they wanted to just draft guards every year in the NBA draft. I could go on and on. De'Aaron Fox, Davion Mitchell, Tyrese Halliburton. They only want to draft guards. They finally realized we have to get a forward to match with De'Aaron Fox. Obviously, another guy we didn't mention, Harrison Barnes. Very good guy.
Yeah.
He wasn't the main piece. They needed more of a pick-and-roll guy, and Harrison Barnes really isn't that. He's more of a shooter. So that's why Sabonis works great in that system. I'm excited to see what
and
the
he's
Kings
such a
look
good
like.
passer too. I mean, they can run the offense through him if Fox is off the floor. He can initiate the sets, and he's just a very skilled player. I think it's the perfect fit.
100%. I would agree with you there. Any other takes you guys have in the NBA?
I was curious what your guys' thoughts were on the Grizzlies. What's going on with Ja Morant?
I mean, here's the thing about Ja. You always want your star players to be in the game, whether it's injuries, things off the court. You always root for them to be obviously on the court, healthy, playing. But with those off-court issues, it seems like he always needs to get things figured out, get things situated. I'm rooting for him to do that, even though you look at how young he is and obviously has so much money to his name. He has the keys to the franchise. It does come with a lot of pressure, and obviously I think he's probably succumbed to that. And obviously was under a lot of probably pressure being the star player and obviously having all that money and all that fame. It obviously must have been tough for him to deal with. So hopefully he gets those things figured out. I heard he's going to get some help, obviously.
Yeah.
I think it's in Florida. But you root for star players to be on the court always. Injuries, obviously a big part of the game. When it comes to off-court issues like that, that's life. That's not even just obviously being an NBA player being hurt. That's obviously what he has going on. That's a lot to do with his life and a lot more at stake than just a game of basketball. So I'm rooting for him to figure things out.
I will say that even with him not playing, they are still the 3 seed.
Still a
And
3, yeah.
I don't really see them falling off very quickly to the rest of the
No.
West.
Because they're still like 3 or 4 games up from that 4, right?
Right.
Probably,
I mean,
or a couple games at least.
Actually, no.
Yeah,
they're
and
two
last
right
year
now.
2
they were
games,
20-5 without Ja Morant,
Right.
which I thought was interesting.
And
And this year they're 5-7 without him, 3-2 since the suspension. I mean, Tyus Jones slots right in, and it's not too big of a drop off. Taylor Jenkins is a great coach, and they've got a really good system in place.
Yeah.
that's
yeah.
the thing. It's like
Jones is nuts.
That's the thing. It's
He's a
like I
beast.
think the Grizzlies are just a great team, and I mean we just saw
Agreed.
them.
Jaron Jackson, defensive player of the year, too.
Yeah, Jaren, he's going to run away with it. It's not even close at this point. And they just flattened the Warriors a couple nights ago. Embarrassed them.
Yeah.
Which,
And they crushed the Mavericks. I think they won by like 26 or something like that on Monday.
so it's like, of course they want Ja. I mean, he is their best player.
Yeah.
You know, but it's a weak West.
Yeah. That's why I think anyone could really come out on.
I mean, they're going to be playing the Timberwolves, or they're going to be playing
Lakers, maybe?
Right. So they're going to
Could
be
be the
playing one of
Lakers
those
if they get to
play-in
6.
teams. Like they're going to
next
roll
week.
over them.
Yeah, 2 versus 7 would be right now, maybe. So it could be the Lakers if they were to win a play-in. We'll see, though. I mean, I root for John to get things figured out off the court. And hopefully he does that, and obviously he's back for the playoffs. But like I said, it's more than just injuries. Like, I think obviously when you see a player get hurt, see a player off the court, there's a lot of variables that a player could be off the court for. But what he has going on, obviously, is more than just the game of basketball. It's life. So hopefully he gets that figured out.
You want to talk MVP a little bit?
Yeah, let's talk MVP talk. Who do you guys got winning MVP? Obviously, Jason Tatum's up there. He's in talks. Obviously, you got a ton of players in the NBA that are in there. Jokic could obviously repeat. Who else? Who's the third favorite right now? I think it was those 2. Luka. Luka's in there.
And
Embiid,
Giannis.
Embiid's probably up there.
Embiid, Giannis, Luka, they're all in there. What's your take right now for MVP? You guys both. I'll start with Timmy. You got Tatum MVP?
I get Tatum. I mean, I'm just I'm a homie, right? So
Yeah, I'm with you there. I root for my guys too.
Terrible. But, I mean, I'm sure this Timmy, my son Tim, is saying who? Jokic.
Jokic. Yeah, it'd be 3 in a row for Jokic, wouldn't it be, right? Would it be 3 in a row from
3 in a row, which is the first time that would happen since
Wilt Chamberlain, right? Was it Wilt?
I think Jordan did it.
Jordan might
I
have?
think Jordan
Okay.
did, or
I don't know. I just think the Celtics are just I mean, they're in a great position. So I don't know. Maybe there's no advantage to Tatum being on that team, but
I think it might help his case, honestly.
that's my take on it.
Because the Celtics have gotten better and better every single year, and Tatum's even gotten better and better every year. So It's not just like he's had a great team around him. They've been getting better while he's getting better. He's making his team around him better for the most part. That's a sign of an MVP or a star player, a player that can make his team better around him. That goes for every sport. Whether you're a quarterback, you're a pitcher. I mean, you make your team around you better. Baseball's obviously not as much of a team game, but you can contribute to wins being a team player, whatever you're doing. And Tatum's great at scoring, and he's been helping the Celtics with that. So what do you got, Matt, for MVP?
I mean, I maybe the games played will have to factor into it a little bit, but I mean, I just think I think it should be Giannis.
I'd go Giannis too.
He's averaging 32, 12, and 6 on like 55% shooting with a block and a steal a game. I mean, that's ridiculous. I mean, I feel like nowadays everybody wants to see you average a triple double or as close to a triple double as you can to win the MVP award, but those numbers are just absurd.
Yeah. I would agree with you there.
And the Bucks, I think the Bucks are clearly the best team. So the best player, the most important player on the best team. I think that should be who the MVP is.
I would agree with you. I think Embiid's making a case. He could even have won the last couple years. Embiid was at least in the conversation. Games played came into, obviously, the situation was then Jokic. I think Jokic last year, games played was the situation for Embiid. But 2 years ago, I mean, no one was even closer to Jokic with his triple-double stats as a center, which is impossible to do.
Yeah.
Having a center.
It is, and don't get me wrong, the triple-double is absurd. But it's just, I feel like maybe I'm just getting voter fatigue in that respect.
No, I think Giannis is right there. Giannis would be my pick, actually. So you got Tatum, you got Giannis, you got Jokic, obviously, from Timmy. You got Giannis for me. Who do you got for MVP?
I mean, to me, it's like nearly a three-way tie between Embiid, Giannis, and Jokic. Personally, I would lean Giannis for many of the same reasons that he was saying. I think it's weird because if you went around and you asked people, like, who's the best basketball player in the world right now, I feel like most people would probably say Giannis. But it's rare that the best player in the world is also the guy who wins the MVP.
Yeah, you're right.
Even
LeBron,
that's so true. Yeah.
LeBron,
that's so true.
A decade-long stretch, or maybe longer, where it's like
12 to 15 years,
right,
the best player in the
where
league.
He was obviously the best player, but this guy has a big season. You give him the MVP, whatever. I think this is a place where the stats and his team performance and the fact that we all know that he's the best player kind of line up. Like,
definitely,
it feels like a no-brainer to me. Or maybe just give it to Embiid so that people shut up about it and about the fact that he's been snubbed, whatever.
Yeah.
But
I wouldn't be opposed to that either. That would be awesome because that's all you hear about.
Embiid, Embiid he was in the conversation the last couple of years. He's in it again, so he'll probably get his one.
And if he won it, it would be completely justified.
Yeah,
but it's not like he's running away with it by any means.
No, I think Tatum's right there too.
Very true.
Luka's fallen off just slightly. I think Kyrie hasn't helped that really. I don't think Kyrie's helped him there, but he was in the conversation a week or two ago. Was still in there, but I don't think Kyrie.
He's missed a lot of games. He's missed a lot of games this year too.
Missed games. Then him and Kyrie just haven't really gelled. But they're both pretty similar, at least the way they play. They both want the ball, and especially in a ball-dominant offense where Luka had the ball his whole career in Dallas. Now you add a guy to that system that wants the ball just as much. It's obviously tough. But we'll see what happens there. Obviously, I like all of you guys' picks. I think the nice thing about our picks, they're all balanced, but we can all see eye to eye with. It could be really any of those guys, especially in the NBA now. I mean, guys could heat up towards the end of the year and end up winning it. That's what happened with Marcus Smart last year. Right at this point about last year, Marcus Smart went on a run, averaging, I think, 2.5 steals plus blocks a game, getting about 3 turnovers, forced a game, ends up, winning the Defensive Player of the Year because of it. So you can heat up in that last few weeks. That can make a big difference. So we'll see what player makes a run towards the end.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting. We can close out with one thing. You guys want to talk either baseball or football? What would you guys choose in the last segment?
I'll
let you guys choose.
I just want to listen to Joey talk about the Giants.
Okay, all right. So you talk NFL, but we can talk NFL.
We don't have an hour.
Yeah, we don't get an hour. I mean,
yes.
I'll limit it to 5 minutes if you guys want. I'll make it 3 minutes, even better. I'll make it speed
Before
round.
you talk about that, let me just say one thing.
Absolutely.
Jimmy G going to Las Vegas.
So let's talk NFL in general. I'm with that. Let's do it.
No,
How do you feel about that, Timmy?
I mean, I was a Jimmy G fan. I'm like,
you're a big Jimmy G guy. I remember. I like Jimmy G myself.
I've always been sad since he left. So
yeah,
I always thought there was a possibility we could get him back here, but not going to happen. I guess it's,
I think he's going to flourish in Vegas. You add Jacoby Myers, a number 2 wideout. Arguably,
Josh McDaniels. Is that right?
Josh McDaniels. You got one of the best running backs in the NFL. You got Devontae Adams, the best wide receiver in the NFL in my eyes. And you obviously have a good offensive system with McDaniels. And
I think
and Josh
McDaniels
We'll
was
see what
so
happens.
smart in making that choice, but that's just my opinion. But anyway, let's talk about the Giants.
McDaniels is great, though. I'm with you there. The Giants made a move today, trading a third-round pick, the 100th overall pick in the NFL draft in this coming draft, so 2023, for Darren Waller, a tight end from Vegas. So speaking of the Raiders, Jimmy G's losing out one of his weapons, going to the Giants for the 100th pick. He's getting, I think, around $17 million a year over the next 3 years, but the Giants have a lot of cap space, which you pointed out today.
They have a lot of cap space going into
2024 and on.
Any cap space this year. Going into next year, they have a bunch.
So they could probably make him like $23 million next 2 years and make his cap hit $5 million this year.
Trades in the NFL make no sense cap wise. I can't explain it even if I wanted to.
Well, because you have to choose a certain amount. I think the Raiders have to take on at least some of the guaranteed money. I think the bonus money, the guaranteed money. So if you sign a guy and he's signing bonus of $20 million, that's on the Raiders to pay. I'm pretty sure.
Right.
Then the salaries what the Giants would pay.
So that's because of how that works. Even though we have almost no cap space right now, that we can go through the trade, and then we don't feel that $17 million until next year.
Yes.
So, which is when we have plenty of space.
That's the exact reason why when the Giants traded Odell to the Browns, and Odell's cap hit was only like $5 million for which the Giants also chewed money. That was part of it. But with the guaranteed money, the Giants I think had to pay just about all of that. So Odell's cap hit in Cleveland his first year I think was $5 million, and the Giants are paying I think $16 million, $15 million. So just paying him to not be on the team. So we'll see what happens. I love that move by the Giants. They picked up a linebacker from Chicago, Bobby Okereke. I think he was 7th in NFL. Colts. It was Colts. The Bears did make a lot of moves though.
Yes.
Linebacker was why I said him. But they got a linebacker from the Colts. This is the best tackle on the team, even though they had Leonard. He was the best tackle on the team. I think he was 7th in the NFL in total tackles, and that's one thing the Giants struggled with was missed tackles in the middle of the field.
And linebackers generally.
Linebackers in general, they don't have a guy that can cover.
Yeah,
I don't think this guy's even. This guy's really not great in coverage. But yeah, we haven't had a good linebacker in years.
Yeah.
We haven't had a great linebacker. We've had good ones that are good for what they are. Like Tay Crowder was a 7th-round pick. He was good at being a 7th-round pick linebacker. David Mayo, picking him up on a 1-year minimum deal. He was good at what he had. Blake Martinez was a $10 million a year. He was good when he was on the field. We haven't really had a great tackling linebacker since Blake Martinez was always hurt. Maybe this guy will be the guy. But I'm excited to see what the Giants do. Obviously, they got Daniel Jones on a new deal, 4 years, $160 million. Saquon Barkley on the franchise tag. How do you feel about Daniel Jones, Saquon's deals? He's a big Giants guy like me, so hearing his opinion would be big.
I mean, I think we were all when we heard initially that like Jones wanted over $40 million, we were all a little upset. But seeing that Garoppolo, seeing all these guys get almost $40 million makes me feel better about it, especially after that Carr deal.
Derek Carr at 35.5 or 37.5 was it?
Yeah, so it's like hard to argue with that number. The guaranteed money isn't terrible, and I don't think they had a choice. Like, you can't let a quarterback walk because we're no in position to draft QB. We're no in position to sign a different QB. He played well, get it done. That's what they did. Yeah,
I would agree with you there.
And then with Saquon, you hope he get the deal done. We'll see. We have a ton of money going to the next few years.
Yeah.
So it's not ridiculous to imagine us getting a deal done.
Yeah.
I think it mostly just comes down to how much do we have to guarantee.
Guaranteed money is what it's coming down to 100%. Just like Lamar's deal. Guaranteed money, it's really what it's coming down to.
And then the other thing is we have Dex coming up for a contract next year.
Dexter Lawrence, yep.
The question is, will we be able to get him on an extension this year? Because that could really make things easier for us.
To save money, yes. And maybe we could restructure Leonard Williams or Dory Jackson.
Well, and that's the other
extend them.
Leonard Williams, I think, getting paid like $30 million.
$32 million. I think he's the highest cap hit among any player in the NFL on defense this year.
Right. So
which is nuts.
Which is going to get restructured.
I think they might extend it maybe, which I don't know if you really want to push it too far back, but maybe you extend him like a 2-year deal, $30 million, and then break it up whatever way you got to. I don't know. He didn't really have as good of a year last year, but I think it's because Dexter Lawrence had such a good year in that middle of the interior defensive line. So that was obviously tough. But one thing about DJ, which I want to get Matt's opinion on it, I'll get Timmy's as well. One thing about DJ, a lot of people are coming at that money that he got, the $40 million a year, and how does Daniel Jones get $40 million a year? Well, that's just the way the NFL's trending now. Like, if you look at it, he's now tied for 8th highest in average annual value in the NFL among quarterbacks. And that's without Jalen Hurts, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, and I'm missing one other one. Trevor Lawrence. Yeah. All of those guys, which Trevor Lawrence might be a year and a half away from getting paid, but the other guys are going to get paid, which we might have lost him. But all those other guys are going to get paid within the next year. Burrow's probably going to get paid maybe even this offseason. Who knows? Maybe one more year from now. But by those 5 contracts, all 5 of those guys are going to make over $40 million a year average annual value. So Daniel Jones is going to be around 12th to 13th highest paid quarterback in the NFL by that point. So I don't know how you feel about it, Matt, but I know you've been riding with Daniel Jones, especially because I've been a big fan. I know you started picking up on him, and you liked him even before that, but I know you root for him for my sake and my dad's sake. So what do you think of that deal? What do you think of the Giants this past year, and how do you feel about their future, especially with DJ and Saquon back for at least one more year?
Yeah, no, I completely understand your argument there too, and that's definitely true. Where the first year, or I guess maybe we'll be conservative and say the first 2 years, whenever you hand out a big quarterback contract, it's always going to suck because it's at market. It's a huge cap. It's a huge percentage of your cap, and there's just nothing you can do about it. But then because the cap keeps going up every year with the TV deals, then the contracts keep going up. So eventually, we kind of saw it a few years ago with Russell Wilson on the Seahawks, and then Andrew Luck when his contract first hit in. They were getting paid so much money compared to the cap, and then eventually their contracts were, oh wow, it was actually smart that they paid him all that money and had him guaranteed for 4 or 5 years, because then it's below market and you have a lot more cap space going forward. So
100%.
I think maybe the first year it'll be tougher to stay and remain competitive, but I don't know. I like the Giants. I like Dable a lot. I think that, like you had said, you guys have made some really, really good moves, and I think getting Waller in the door is going to help Jones have an actual target to throw the ball to.
In the red zone, too, which is huge, because we had to run the ball in the red zone consistently since we didn't really have that big target, except Isaiah Hodgins we got towards the end of the year. But we didn't have that big red zone target. It forced us to run the ball on first and second down a lot of the time rather than try to throw at least maybe on second and mix up looks. Now you have that red zone target that can obviously reach up. He's a big vertical. He's 6'6". DJ really hasn't had too many big receivers. I know Kenny Golladay was supposed to be that guy at 6'5", or 6'4", was not that guy. Now DJ actually has a red zone target that hopefully can return to his form for 2020. He was hurt in 2022, only played 9 games. He had 9 touchdowns in 2020. He was a Pro Bowler actually that year as well. If he can get back to the Pro Bowl way and maybe play, which he might get hurt. He's been hurt the last couple of years. He missed a few games the last few years. If he could play at least like 13 of the 17 games, I love the deal. Even if you just have him in the playoffs, I love it. But DJ does need some help in the red zone. I think that'll help.
Yeah. Semi-breaking news is that James Bradbury just re-signed with the Eagles for 3 years, $38 million, which seems like a real steal to me.
Yeah, I don't know how you get him for really $13 million a year
for us.
That's a
20 million guaranteed, right?
I think so. I didn't get the exact number.
Probably somewhere around that. Imagine like 2025, probably roughly. But that's a still just about under $13 million average annual value, which is unreal. I don't know how that happened, but
especially with all the departures that they've just had too. The Eagles they've lost so many key players. That was a good contract to get executed.
Definitely, yeah. Javon Hargrove left, and then you lost T.J. Edwards too. They lost as well, the linebacker. Yeah. So 2 big losses there. Hargrove got a big payday, and then obviously Edwards actually got paid as well. So that's 2 losses there. But I think Bradbury coming back on a $13 million a year is interesting. Kelsey coming back, Jason Kelsey, the center, coming back from 1 year, $13 million. It seems like they're all taking hometown value
Graham
discounts.
Also. But a lot of,
yes, Brandon Graham as well, discounts.
Oh, yeah, true.
Graham's not as good as he once was. I think you could still get him in a younger deal, smaller deal. But
you understand it completely. It's like, especially Kelsey and Graham, it's like they've been there basically their
whole career. Yeah,
it's
whole career for Kelsey. Yeah,
and they're both like over 30. It's
30, 32.
It makes sense that they would hang around. Bradbury, I thought, this is a guy coming off of like a career rejuvenating season. He'll go get his bag somewhere else. But unfortunately not for us.
Yeah, I wish he came back to the Giants. There was talks that they could reunite, but it was very light. It wasn't really anything crazy. But I'll add Timmy back to the call. But it wasn't anything crazy. It was really just light that the Giants could potentially.
They also re-signed Boston Scott.
Boston Scott re-signed. No,
you can put us in for 2 losses next
12
year.
touchdowns in his career. He's like 14 touchdowns in his career, and 10 of them coming against the Giants. Something nuts. There he is, Timmy, back on the call.
Sorry.
No worries at all. No worries. You didn't miss too much. Just talking Giants.
We've also got some Pats news.
Patriots talk. Here you go.
That they signed
Jabril Peppers.
2-year deal, was it?
I think so.
2-year deal? Yeah, let's talk Patriots. So,
2-year deal.
Timmy, you were right about, I think you said probably around October, November, the Patriots had to go get Bill O'Brien. They ended up going to get him. Huge. You called that in October that they need to go get new OC. Giants fans could have told you Joe Judge wouldn't have worked out, but no one would have said and guessed right that Bill O'Brien would be there, especially you called it 4 or 5 nights before.
I think O'Brien and Belichick have a decent relationship. So, plus, Bill Belichick's background is defensive. So he, the whole time Josh was there, he kind of deferred to him,
Definitely. That's part of the game, too, especially in today's day in the NFL.
It's going to be the same with
passing
Billy
league.
O'Brien, and of course, Bill Belichick loves Alabama.
Yeah.
So,
You
anybody
can second him on that.
Yeah.
Anybody we can get from Alabama.
It
You
seems
know,
like it seems
apparently like Mac Jones, but
Mac Jones is one, and then
we'll see how he does.
Christian
this year.
Barmore, another one.
Oh,
Damian
yeah.
Harris, another Patriot. That's a Bama guy.
It seems like the cycle with Patriots coaches is that they do well enough to get a coaching job somewhere else. They fail. They go to Alabama for rehab, and then finally they're back at the Patriots.
I think you're right. I think you're
Josh
right.
McDaniels will go to Alabama, I don't know, next year, and then finally he'll complete the cycle.
Be back at the Patriots.
No.
I think Josh is hoping he makes a run for it with Jimmy Garoppolo, but we'll see.
I think he can. I want to get your take on that, both of you guys. Timmy, we'll start with you though. Jimmy G obviously got hurt with the Niners. I think his biggest thing is staying healthy. But how do you think he does with the Raiders? You think he does well?
I think he's going to do well.
I would agree with you.
Because I think he and Josh had a good relationship when they're at the Pats.
Yeah,
At the Pats.
and you noted that earlier, which is a great point. You're right. The chemistry's there. And I know
Yeah.
Matt, too. I know you're a big Patriots guy. I don't know how you feel about Jimmy G, but I think he's obviously a winning quarterback. He wins big games, even though obviously he doesn't really stay healthy. That's a big issue with Jimmy G. But he does win games. He does have a great record as a starter in the NFL. How do you feel about him being on the Raiders?
Yeah, I mean, I think it makes sense because Tim and McDaniels already, like Tim said, they already have the existing relationship. They know each other. They know Josh knows his tendencies, and they can scheme up a similar system. But I feel like with a guy like Jimmy Garoppolo, like he kind of needs the exact right situation and team where he doesn't have to do too much. You have a really good defense you can lean on for when he has those games where he's not an effective passer. And I mean, when he had a lot of his playoff success with the 49ers, it was because of the run game and the defense, not necessarily him. I mean,
Yeah.
in that NFC
Good point.
Championship game, he threw 6 passes against the Packers.
That's a great point. It's a great point. I didn't think of it that way, but he does play very conservative, too, most of the time, which helps.
Yeah, and so he's not going to go out and lose you a game, but I don't think he's the quarterback that's going to go out there and make you a game-winning play. He's going to do just enough to keep you in the game and not blow a lead, or
Yeah.
So I think it can work because the Raiders have a good team around him. They've got a lot of weapons, and
Yep.
I think if they can keep improving the defense, then maybe they can make some noise.
Definitely. How do you feel about Jimmy G being on Las Vegas?
I just don't have a very strong belief in this Raiders team in general. So, like, to
They
me,
broke last year.
to me, like, the idea of signing like you said, I think Jimmy G is the type of quarterback who can make enough plays to keep you in a game, but he's not going to win the game for you.
And that's why he's a good record. He's had a good team
Right.
around him. For the most part, he's had a good team around him always.
He's played for the Patriots and then went to play for this
San Francisco 49ers.
crazy talented 49ers team.
Two good organizations, too. It's not like he
Right.
went to Cleveland
Yeah,
or a
exactly.
team that was on the downturn like Jacksonville.
Complete teams, great special teams, great defense. and
Exactly.
Great coaches.
And I think
It's not like he went to Jacksonville at their lowest
and,
point.
I mean, this Raiders team were a mess. And as far as I'm concerned, they're still a mess until they prove they're not. So, to me, it doesn't really matter if it's Jimmy G or Carr or whoever else at quarterback.
Definitely.
That's just me, though.
I think the Raiders are a product of, which this is huge in the NFL, huge in all of sports, that is missing on draft picks. If you have a top pick in the draft first round, you have to hit on them, and they consistently missed on guys.
Oh, yeah.
I can name you 10 right now. Alex Leatherwood, Damon Arnett, Henry Ruggs. They took
Cleveland
Colton
Farrell.
Miller, Cleveland Farrell. Colton Miller's probably one of the better ones, but Cleveland Farrell, that's 5 guys right there that are first-round picks in the top 20, and not one of those guys panned out really. I think Miller's probably the better one. I think they had him, 3 or 4 years. But
Cleveland Farrell's a fine player, but definitely not a
he's not a
fourth
top
overall pick.
No, he's probably not even. He's
Yeah.
probably late first, if that, maybe second, because he's really a run stopper. He was in college. He got some sacks, maybe just because that D line they were focused on Dexter Lawrence and
Christian
Wilkins.
Wilkins.
Isn't that where the Super Bowl is in next year?
I think it is.
Las
Is it
Vegas?
Vegas? I think you might be right. Let me see.
I think it's in Vegas. Yeah.
Let me see. Let's see. Super Bowl 2023. No, that was this year. Hold on, Aaron. Hold on 1 second here. Don't worry. We got it here. Super Bowl 2024. Vegas. You drilled it. First Super Bowl there. Wow, look at you. Maybe we'll see the Patriots play there, right? You never know.
That'd be nice, huh?
You never know. You guys might have to go. You guys
What a
might have to
place
go if
to
that's
play,
the case.
huh?
Let's talk Patriots though for 1 minute. I know we talked them very lightly, but obviously going into this year, there's now new expectations to the team. That last year they were coming in, being a playoff team going into this season. Mac Jones is a Pro Bowler last year, and now expectations have reset going into this year. It seems like Patriots fans, for the most part, really aren't too high in the team. I think more of it has to do with the Patriots division getting better around them. I think that's a big worry for the Patriots is the Dolphins got better. They just got Jalen Ramsey.
Yes,
The Bills are the
that's
Bills.
true.
I think the Jets obviously have gotten better. They could get Aaron Rodgers. I don't think the Patriots roster is bad. I just think the teams around them are just getting better and better, while the Patriots have been, for the most part, right around the same. I think that's where I think Mac Jones will be better this year. I would roll with Mac. I want your opinions, though, on Zappy, Mac, and then obviously the rest of the team. We'll start with you, Matt. Mac, Zappy, who do you feel the Patriots should roll with? Since I feel like a lot of Patriots fans are each way.
I mean, I think it's still Mac's job to lose. I mean, Zappy was fun. It was exciting. And then eventually against that game against the Bears, it all came crashing back down to earth. And it's like, oh yeah, that's why he's a 4th round pick. Yeah. You know, I mean, I think there's potential in both quarterbacks. So it's nice that for Mac that he has the competition, you know, breathing down his neck, saying, okay, I this isn't just going to be handed to me. I actually have to perform because Zappy showing he put some good possessions together, but. I think the key thing with the Patriots is, I mean, so far this offseason, like, they've made some good moves. They were able to get Jonnu Smith out of here. I know it wasn't great compensation return, but just getting that money off the books, that was helpful because that was a big contract. Bringing back Miles Bryant isn't like, you know, it's not like a sexy headline, and same thing with Jonathan Jones. But it's good to get those good to get those guys and Jabril Peppers back in the door. But I mean, I feel like losing Jacoby Myers is going to be a huge blow, and there's not a great free agent market out here either to bolster up the skill position players. So we're going to have to be leaning on some injury-prone veterans that struggled to be any bit of consistent last year with a quarterback who is going through an identity crisis. So, and in a division that had just bolstered up so significantly. I mean, the Miami Dolphins are going all in, and the Jets they could be adding Aaron Rodgers. I know they just signed Alan Lazard today, and they're getting Breece Hall back next year. When they had him, that was an incredibly efficient and strong offense, and their defense is sensational. And obviously, you know, the Bills are going to be relevant so long as Josh Allen is healthy. So it's hard to really feel too optimistic going in as the Patriots. And the unfortunate thing is I think Belichick's too good of a coach where we can get into a position where we'll get a really good draft pick. We're probably going to win six or seven games, which puts us in the middle of the pack. It's kind of like NFL purgatory, you know? I feel like they kind of just need to get to a point where they really just stink. We can get some proven draft talent through the door, and then hopefully we can start to put something together from there. But I think they're kind of just going to be stuck in that really frustrating zone like the Giants have been for the last couple of years.
1 foot in, 1 foot out. That's how the Giants always were.
I want to ask, with Jacoby Myers leaving, who is their number 1 wide receiver?
It's Devontae Parker, I would say.
Probably. I'd probably go Parker, too. Kendrick Bourne, I guess, is now the 2, right?
That's a pretty tough
probably the 3 before, now he's the 2. Maybe you go get a guy like Odell Beckham Jr., maybe you go get him. I know Belichick's wanted him in years past. You could trade for a guy like Amari Cooper. I know Cleveland could potentially move him. There's some guys in the market you go get, but like you said, the free agent market is not really, this isn't the time to go get a receiver.
Like Juju Smith-Schuster, Mecole Hardman, Adam Thielen, like Julio Jones.
Yeah.
I mean,
I didn't think about Adam Thielen.
Julio Jones would be a good like-for-like replacement because he's also allergic to the end zone, just like Jacoby Myers is.
Julio? Yeah. You're right. Adam Thielen would be a good signing.
I mean, Julio's
washed.
Yeah, that's the problem. Is he's past it. He couldn't, and it's not his fault. And Thielen's also pretty old too, and I don't think Juju would be. He's not a number 1. There's just nothing out, and that's the position the Patriots like desperately need. I feel like they need like a skilled position guy who can make a play.
Definitely. I would agree with you. I'm excited to see what the Patriots do in the draft. First time the Patriots really had a high draft pick. 14, I think they have this year, right? This is the first time we really had a high pick. I know a lot of people just expect the Belichick trade down, but there's going to be a lot of good players probably around that 14 range. I know there's usually 5 to 6, 7 blue-collar guys in that top 7 draft picks. Whether or not you need a quarterback, that's a big part of it. There's going to be guys that fall. If there's more quarterbacks taken in the top 5 to 10, that means there's more players falling to you at 14. That's why the Giants were in a good position last year, because you have guys that are getting picked in the top where 2 years ago it was. The Giants didn't need a quarterback. There were quarterbacks taken in the top, obviously 5 to 10 a couple years ago with Mac Jones, Trey Lance, all those guys being picked heavy and high. The Giants had a chance at 11 to take a guy they wanted. They said, no, we'll trade down to 20, still get a good player. Because a lot of guys taken in the top 5 to 10 are quarterbacks, it might help you guys. So I think the Patriots might actually have a good chance of getting a really good player at 14. You're going to get a good player no matter what, but you can get one of those blue-collar guys that fall just because teams are going for position or they're going for a quarterback, which quarterback is the most important part of football, and that's why you see teams trading 3 first-round picks or 2 first-round picks to get a QB. But how do you feel, Timmy, about the Patriots? My fault, Matt. You finished what you're saying. I apologize.
No, sorry. Yeah. One last thing, and I'll turn it over to.
No worries at all. No, you good.
But the one thing that's kind of interesting too is, I mean, the Patriots haven't had this type of draft pick in a very, very long time. And usually when the Patriots do have like a top pick and this high in the draft, it's been home runs. I mean, most recently, I can cite Dante Hightower and Chandler Jones. I mean, I think we can all agree that those are absolute slam dunks of top 20, high 20 picks. So I think that Belichick is, and lately he's drafted basically pick 30 through 32, which is, I would just call it a second round pick. So it's usually those picks are hard to knock out of the park. So, but it's not really an excuse because he's had some absolute duds like Sony Michel and N'Keal Harry with those slots. So it makes sense why he trades out when he has those picks. But I'm hoping this year that we can hopefully find some good linebacker talent in the draft.
Definitely. And I think I was, like you said, this is the first time I've really picked high with expectations of, okay, now we can kind of go get a best player available. I think a few years ago when you had that 20 or 15th pick, you got Mac Jones. That was the COVID year too. It was kind of a blur. You were going for position. You're going for quarterback in need. Now you can kind of go for best player available. And that's the way the Giants were for the last few years, is best player available. For the most part, you would take best player available besides, I guess, Andrew Thomas. A lot of those times it was, I guess, targeting a position of need, which it's hard to have both of them, whether you need a position of need or you have the best player available. But I think the Patriots are going to go BPA, as they call it, and I think they're going to get a great player at 14. That's if they were to stay. But how do you feel, Timmy, about the Patriots and their direction?
Well, I mean, I think, as I mentioned a few moments ago, Billy O'Brien, I think that was good. I mean, the Patricia Judge thing was a disaster.
It's. I can tell you.
I have to be honest, I can't believe they won so many games with that disastrous offensive, play call. But I guess the other thing I just want to point out is, okay, Belichick got rid of Joe Judge and Patricia, okay? Mac Jones, you have a really strong guy in Billy O'Brien. You better listen to him, okay?
Yep. Yeah.
I think it's yours to lose, okay? I agree with Matt. Zappy was fun. I was hoping Zappy would be like another Tom Brady coming in after Drew Bledsoe. That goes way back, but that didn't quite happen that way.
Yeah.
So he's got to step up. You got to get your head in the game here. Okay.
Definitely.
This is the third year. So, but the other thing I completely agree with, this division. I mean, do you guys know how spoiled we have been?
Yeah.
Not just for Tom Brady, but the division has been terrible.
Yeah, now it's unreal. I
mean, I don't know, I'm going to go on, I mean, we would walk into the playoffs. I mean, okay, yep. This is, the seventh straight time we've been, I mean, this has been tough.
Definitely.
But Miami, going all out. I guess the Jets may get Aaron Rodgers. Okay, so they're going to be a contender. And we all know about Buffalo. Mm-hmm. I mean, at some point, Buffalo is going to stop choking in the playoffs, I think. And
I'd hope so, for their sake.
They're going to see it to believe it.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
I would agree with you there. But you're right.
That's kind of my take on it. I mean, I think it's still Mac Jones. Zappy will be there. But Mac has got to get, he's got to get a different attitude. He's got to get his head in the game here now, because Belichick removed what you thought was a terrible, and I agree, Patricia and
demoted them, definitely.
But he removed it, so let's step up now, okay?
Yeah, you're right. Mac does have to listen. They said that was one thing about Mac was in training camp he was stressed out with the whole new offense.
I don't think Billy O'Brien's going to put up with it.
No, he won't. And then they said Mac completely tuned out Joe Judge.
Billy's got a strong personality.
Great point, yeah.
I think Belichick is just going to say, okay, I'm deferring to him. Okay? Like he did with McDaniels.
Definitely. I think part of it is just sports in general. I think whether it's on sports, even in real life, when you have a mentor or a coach, someone you believe in, and they're helping you, and they're right on your side, and they're right in your ear, and they're giving you advice. You want to play, you want to win for that person. Joe Judge being in Mac Jones' ear and him tuning Joe Judge out, I think it was week 5 or 6, completely stopped listening to him. Mac's not going to want to play hard even for himself or for Joe Judge. When you have a coach you want to play for and play hard for, it makes all the difference in the world. And I think obviously him tuning out Joe Judge, it just created a brokenness in their relationship. And I think Mac just wasn't focused. Hopefully he finds that relationship with Bill O'Brien. I think
hope so.
Having someone in your ear that you believe in and they believe in you makes a huge difference. It really does. With anything in life, it doesn't have to just be sports. But what's your take on the Zappe and Mac Jones debate, which I know that was a big thing during the season, but I think everyone's probably in line with Mac now. But
I mean, I have to say that not, living in New England, except for school, this is not something I'm exposed to, is all the people arguing about this. But I mean, I like Zapp in college, but, like, Jones is obviously the starter. And, I mean, I can't blame him for how he reacted last year, because the whole, like, Belichick coaching situation, the way he was delegating responsibilities made no sense. And you would hope that with this new reshuffle that things would function smoothly. There's not much more you can say besides that. Like, why you had Patricia and Joe Judge be coordinators in places they hadn't been coordinators before.
Exactly.
It was bizarre. And it's also... to me, it's like, it's weird because, like, usually Belichick isn't set in his ways, but it seems like he wanted to stick with his guys rather than give, like, an assistant the chance to be the offensive coordinator. And it's not like they have a shortage of talented assistants for the Patriots.
I mean, Patricia's background is defensive coordinator.
Right,
I know
exactly.
he's the head coach of the Lions, but that didn't work out that well. So,
especially with... sorry, go ahead.
You go.
Sorry. Sorry, this is kind of just therapy because I was trying to just block out that Matt Patricia, Joe Judge are still on the Patriots coaching staff, but now that we're talking about it.
Right.
The Patriots were so terrible last year at special teams, and that's all Joe Judge is good at. So I don't understand why they put him on the offensive side of the ball when we could have just put him back on special teams. Because when he was the special teams coordinator with us, it was a no-brainer why the Giants hired him. I mean, this Patriots special teams was unbelievable that year. We led the NFL in return touchdowns and block punts.
Punt coverage was great.
Goals exactly. It was so I don't understand why we didn't put him back there. And why we decided to put both of them on the offensive side of the ball. But back to you. I just had to get that off my chest.
No, it's a great point.
No, and I absolutely agree. And I also say that, like, Patricia and Joe Judge both sort of have a reputation of being, like, abrasive people. Like, for better or worse, like, a lot of football coaches are like that.
Hard-nosed, too.
But, like, when you're losing games like they were, like, that sort of stuff, especially having two guys above you both doing that, it's like, I can see why that offense gave up, because it would become very frustrating very quickly when you have two guys without the expertise you would want, basically saying that you're doing everything wrong.
Yeah.
I think that makes absolute sense.
Definitely. And I think if you look at what Daniel Jones played like under Joe Judge, he regressed heavily in 2 years with Joe Judge, and same thing with Mac Jones, he regressed last year. So that's why I think Mac can have a bounce back year. I still have faith in him, and I'm rooting for him to do well. I think he's a good kid. Obviously, he had his frustrations with the Patriots, coaching staff, and rightfully so. I think it goes two ways. You want to respect your coach. You might not see eye to eye, but you at least want to respect them. I think he's probably more on the side of the disrespect and not listening. You want to at least be able to listen to them, even if you don't see eye to eye. And I don't think he really respected or saw eye to eye with Judge and Patricia. I don't know if I would have. I'm sure it was tough being in his position. But I think I'm buying back into the Mac Jones stock. I'd roll with him for another year, see what happens after that. And then who knows, if he were to not have a good year this year, you guys could just go right into the draft, since it seems like that's what a lot of teams are doing now. Since if you want to pay a quarterback, you have to give him $40 million. Mac Jones will be a free agent a couple years from now, unless you pick his fifth-year option. I don't think the Patriots would probably want to give him $40 million based on what he played like last year. But if he had a big year, rejuvenated year like Daniel Jones had, and redeveloped what he was doing, from his rookie year like Daniel Jones did, he might get himself some money. So there's a lot on the line for Mac this year, and I'm hoping he at least shows progress and then uses that fourth year like Daniel Jones did to get himself some money. We'll see. That's obviously a question. But how do you guys feel about the Aaron Rodgers talk? You think he's going to be a Jet?
I think he's going to be a Jet.
I would agree. He gave that wish list. They already got one down.
I'm not a fan of him. I used to be. I'm disappointed in him.
Every year I pick the Packers and just
I think he's become Aaron Rodgers. I don't know what he's become, though, with all the craziness with what went on with having a vaccine, not having a vaccine.
The vaccine and hiding in a room, The retreat.
I always
immunized. He was immunized.
Like you, I always loved the Packers. Love them. I just love the way that team is. Their grit and determination. But maybe he wants I don't know. Maybe he'll bring the Jets to a different level. We'll see.
Yeah, I'm hoping he, if he were to go there, I wish him success, since there's a quarterback that always has high expectations and never really gets that Super Bowl. He has one, obviously, but I've picked the Packers 3 of the last probably 5-6 years, and every single they have 13 wins in the regular season besides last year, and they lose in the playoffs. So I'm rooting for them just to find one more year of success, kind of like other quarterbacks have done where they go somewhere and just try to find success, like Brady did going to Tampa Bay. It's change of scenery, worked for a year. So we'll see what happens. What do you think? You think he goes?
At this point, I have a lot of Jets friends who are Jets fans, and at this point, I really have to hope that he goes because I don't know what their backup.
Zach Wilson.
Right, it's Zach Wilson, and that's it. Because Mike White just got signed, Garoppolo's gone,
yeah,
Carter's gone. Like he's their only option at this point.
Lamar Jackson, maybe, but
I don't know what's going on with that.
Can they afford him? I don't know what the.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know if they want to give the 2 picks. Probably, I don't know if they want to because their team is rebuilding already. But you can go get a quarterback and figure it out. But I think they're probably just hoping that they can get a guy like Rodgers for less than Lamar would be. Rodgers probably be a first rounder and something else, first and a third maybe. Lamar would be 2 firsts. They might not want to part ways with 2 firsts and all that money. Like you said, the money's obviously part of it.
I will say that I don't really have any serious takes on it. Just it's very funny to me that Aaron Rodgers might follow the exact same career trajectory as Brett Favre. I literally texted.
Yes, exactly.
After the Packers lost.
Yes.
I texted, after the Rodgers news came out about him wanting to trade, it's like, I said as a joke to my brother, he's going to go to the Jets, just like Favre did.
Yep.
And, So.
You're right.
It's crazy, isn't it? I think he could. I think
That'd be so funny.
And it's even the same with him not liking Jordan Love. Just like Brett Favre didn't like him.
Same path.
Yeah, that's so true.
Same path.
Maybe it's his swan song after that. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, the Vikings better get ready.
Definitely. No, I'd agree with you there. I'd agree with you.
Well, doesn't Kirk Cousins' contract comes up the same year Rodgers?
There you go.
So it's already written in the stars.
He's going. You're right. I love it. You guys are projecting his future. One last thing I want to talk about in the NFL, which we talked about the Dolphins a little bit. And obviously, they picked up 2 as 5th-year options, so at least run with 2 for another year, which I think was a smart decision going into his 4th year. You pick up that 5th year just in case he ends up being great this next year, and you get him for $25 million rather than whatever it would be if he was the free agent, $35 million. What do you guys think about Brady? Do you think there's any chance he actually comes out of retirement and goes to Miami? Since there was talks about that 2 weeks ago, now they've kind of dulled.
I do.
Any chance Brady comes out? All right, Timmy, you agree?
I do.
You feel like he could? I agree too. I actually think he could.
Yeah.
Matt?
I really felt bad for Tom this year. I mean, I loved him when he was in New England. It took me a while to get over him leaving, but I understood all that. It just was not handled well between when he left and went to the Buccaneers. But good for him, he got another ring.
He did.
Just off the field, really felt badly for him. It made a huge impact, and Tom is really tough mentally, and I still think it impacted his play. So
Definitely.
I really don't think he's ready. I don't think he's ready. I think he's
going to play one more.
The guy is in phenomenal shape. He is such an incredible athlete. It might happen.
I would agree. I think there's a chance as well. What do you think, Matt? You think he comes back?
Yeah, to Tim's point, I'm still not over him leaving the Patriots. So it's almost been 3 years. So
it's really hard.
I think that he's. I don't think he'd come back. I don't think he's going to come back. I mean, this last year, I've never seen Tom Brady have worse body language. I've never seen him look more frustrated. I've never seen him look even kind of just helpless. He wasn't able to make some of the throws and the reads and that he used to in the past. And it seems like his heart wasn't and his mind weren't really fully in it because have you ever heard Tom Brady skipping one practice a week? I mean, he made his whole career. He made his whole career on staying after practice, working super hard, getting the chemistry with the guys, perfecting the timing. And this year he took every Wednesday off, and it just seems like he's not fully committed to it anymore. And in his first retirement speech, the line that kind of stuck out was, "You're either 100% in or you're 100% out." So I think that he's never going to be 100% in again. So I think that he's truly going to stay retired.
Okay, I like that. That's a good point. I never even thought about that line you just said, the fully in and fully out, but that's a great point. I think there's a chance he comes back and plays again, comes out of retirement, but I think at the end of the day, too, you retired twice. I don't know if you'd want to do it a third time after he calls it up. But what do you think, though, Dill?
I'm done talking about Tom Brady. That's all I have to say.
Not a big Brady guy. You know we're Giants fans, though. But, Brady...
Yeah. And thank you for not
Brady.
bringing up the game that shall not be named.
We won't bring it up. Don't worry. We'll save you the stress of it.
That shows character.
2007.
Uh-oh. He brought it up for you. Your own Patriots friend there brought it up.
Wes Welker. But
yeah.
It hurt us, but...
It's tough. But I always say this to Patriots fans. They still got, 6 other ones with Brady? So... At least they got some, at least it wasn't like you guys only went to 1 or 2, I know you obviously want to win the ones you're in, but they did get another six other runs. So, obviously, Brady had a great career, and Patriots fans were spoiled, just like Giants fans. Even though we've seen a lot of bad years of football, we did see 2 Super Bowl rings, and there are a ton of franchises in the NFL, in sports in general, that have never seen a win. Yeah. So, that's one thing about Boston fans in general. We are spoiled with all our teams. Yankees fans, historically, obviously, the rings, spoiled. Giants fans were spoiled. Knicks back in the day, obviously now we're getting towards better days, but Knicks fans were spoiled back in the day as well. Like, that's just how it goes. New York and Boston, 2 big sports towns. We've been lucky. We've seen some bad years. The Giants have seen a lot of bad years. The Jets as well, both at the same time just about. But Mets really haven't been that great in years past. But they're getting better now, which is good. And same thing with the Yankees. Yankees and Mets are good at the right time. So we'll see. But one thing I always say about sports, and I told you guys this earlier episode, sports are always better when New York teams and Boston teams are better. Whether they're meeting each other in the finals or the playoffs, so be it. If they don't meet each other, obviously that's fine. But I always think sports are always better when they're both playing great, because you have nationally televised games. There's obviously rivalry between Red Sox, Yankees, Celtics, Knicks, Patriots, Giants, even Bruins, Rangers. There's always something there. So that's what I like. Patriots, Jets as well. You can add in, but I always like when New York teams are better. So I'm always rooting for them to do well. So hopefully the Jets get back on track. Hopefully the Patriots get back on track as well. We'll see what happens. But don't want to take up too much more of you guys' time. But thank you guys so much for taking the time to come on. It really does mean the world to me. It was awesome. Yeah. You guys are always welcome. He'll be back in to talk about the Red Sox, Yankees.
Yeah, we'll do
the MLB
series with that.
Probably in a couple weeks, and then a couple weeks after that will be mid-April will be NBA playoffs. So Matt, we'll have you come on and give your predictions again, since you drilled that Celtics one, which is still nuts. You said Celtics in 5, and they were Celtics in 4. So crazy that you had that, but you knew your stuff though, and I appreciate you guys taking the time. So thank you guys so much. It means the world.
It was fun.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It was
See you later.
It's great to be on.
Yes,
I appreciate you guys. Have a great night. Thank you guys again.
Nice to meet you guys.
Take it easy.
Have a good one. Bye-bye. 2 of the best right there in the business, huh?
Yeah, that was
Matt
great.
and Timmy. Thank you guys so much for coming on, Matt and Timmy. It's a pleasure. And thank you to Dylan as well. Thank you for coming to the studio. It means the world having you in here, so I appreciate it. You bring a lot of insight to everything. College basketball, college football, NBA, NHL, everything. So thank you for coming in.
All right,
Appreciate
thanks.
it. That will conclude the episode. Thank you guys so much for taking the time to listen to this. As always, I appreciate it. I will be back on next Tuesday night, March 21st from 7 to 8 on WZBC AM Sports Radio. Thank you guys. Have a great rest of your night and have a great rest of your week. Enjoy March Madness and stay safe and well. Thank you.